Okay.
Grand Rising Jay.
Huh?
Someone just came on. I have a question, Justin.
Yes.
Can you send the recording to Kiki Corbin?
Yeah, of course.
She was asking me yesterday, she's been very busy, but she was asking yesterday about reconnecting with you and our group. So she'd love to hear this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll share the first one, and then once this one's posted, I'll get it to everybody.
Okay.
So let me do it this way. So yeah, again, I'm just going to kind of quickly go through what I did last week. So kind of like the idea here, obviously, is this is an open forum. I'm not here to sort of tell people what they should be doing or any of that. It's really just, I just put this together, this call, this co-creation space, so that we can kind of talk about this stuff. And there may be things that you're doing in your life or have thought about doing or had heard somebody mention that they're doing that can be brought into the space, and we can talk about it and co-create around that. So I brought up this, which was really because, the word quantum for a lot of people can kind of scare them or think it's very scientific or, really kind of make them feel like, oh, that's above me intellectually or whatever. But I kind of just put these terms here to simplify what quantum really means, and using these terms to kind of understand the simplicity of it all, actually. And so for me, attention equals currency. So whatever you put your attention on is really what creates currency. Your intention and will is your compass, telling you which direction you need to go. The heart space, or the 0 point, is really the map, right? So using your heart to know what the terrain looks like and what is this place you're in, and then obviously using your compass, your intention to move around the map, essentially. Nature is really your uniqueness, right? So if we look at plants, even within the same species, each plant has its own uniqueness, and that's the same case with us, right? We have our own unique gifts, our own powers that, for many of us, including myself, we've got to continue to explore and identify those so that we can step into those powers and start to practice them and get better at them, because they do exist. And sometimes, even for me, it took me a long time to really understand some of my unique gifts, and I'm still unlocking some of those. So it's a process. But I think when you look at Mother Nature, what you see is that obviously we have lots of different species, and within each species you even have uniqueness within those species, and then within that each plant has its own uniqueness. So that's kind of how you can see how this gets quantum here. And then the last one here is awareness, and that's really what we should be seeking all the time, is awareness, because that's really the photon or the light, and that's really a key point to all of this, is really continuing to step into awareness, whatever that is for you, because a lot of us are finding new awareness in a lot of different areas of our lives these days. And then the thing that I always say in business, but it applies in life in general, is put your attention on your intention. And it really gets that simple. To me, that is the quantum field right there, right? So when you can be like this right here, like waking up early in the morning. I don't normally wake up this early, but to be on this call with you guys, like there's nothing more I'd rather be doing. This is just, I could sit here for hours. The last call, somebody jumped on towards the end, and I went through the call again with them. It was like a 3-hour call, and I didn't even feel like it. Right. So, when you are putting your attention on your intentions, then, the stuff that you're doing is a lot of fun, and there's really doesn't feel like work. And especially if you are coming from that heart space, the map, and taking compassionate action, this is really the formula right here. It's really simple, right? So figuring out what your intention is, I think that's the challenge, right? A lot of people have energy and they're going through their motions and doing their thing every day, but they don't really know why they're doing it. You know, they don't have clear intentions on what they're trying to accomplish. So obviously creating your intention, and I'll repeat mine here. My personal intention is to bring in unconditional love and conscious awareness to as many entrepreneurs, business owners, and other living beings as possible through my thoughts, actions, and behaviors in each now moment, because I want everyone to grow, be protected, nourished, healed, fulfilled, and at peace in their heart now and forever. That's my personal intention. So that's why I do what I do every day. And so it's real easy for me to be able to make decisions in my life based on what I plan to do in my day, because I have a clear intention, and all I have to do is put my attention on that. And so what I did, and again, as I mentioned earlier with the open forum concept, these topics could change. These were just things, a framework that I created that I thought were the most meaningful areas in most people's lives. And I might be missing something here. But these were just 9 areas that I came up with that we could kind of, as much as a lot of this stuff, as you'll see, it's very much overlapping, right? All these areas are intertwined very deeply, but it at least helps us in conversation talk about different areas. And another little, phrase that I use in business when I'm doing business coaching and helping people, understand how to grow their business, is that small hinges move big doors. And so, whether it's a behavior change or a product, a technology, or as simple as a breathing technique, anything like that, like those little things can actually make a huge jump in your life, and giving you new perspective, creating new awareness for you. So it's really important to know that, like, as we talk through some of this stuff, and there's a multiple pieces and things that we're talking about that have potential. Like, you don't have to go and try and do everything. It's really just like find out whatever resonates with you and try something different and try something new and add something to the mix. And you probably had thoughts and ideas that you just haven't implemented yet. And so I think understanding that small hinges move big doors, you know that, like, hey, if I just go take a step and spend the $20 or spend the 20 minutes doing something, that it actually could make a tremendous change in my overall experience here. And the reason I use the word move and instead of open is that in many cases you need to close doors. You need to close old doors and start opening new ones. So I use the word move because a lot of times we've got a bunch of open doors that actually you need to finally close. And so that's why I use that from that phrase. I use the word move, not always open, because if you got too many open doors, then again, getting back to your attention and the things that are kind of distracting you in your life, a lot of times there were doors that you opened that served you at that time, but they no longer serve you, but we tend to keep those doors open. And so, in terms of small hinges move big doors, it's really important that we also close old doors that no longer serve us. So what I did was just kind of broke out each of these areas in ways that, I've been sort of trying to put pieces of the puzzle together that are affordable, and just bringing everything to the table in terms of ways that I've considered. Some of these things I'm not doing yet actively or on a regular basis, but it's something that made sense to me. So, and obviously in the arena of air, just having, as I mentioned in the last call, having conscious awareness of your breathing at all times, right? So we don't need any products or any techniques there. It's really just conscious awareness. Like, when I breathe in, is my belly filling up like like Santa Claus, jolly old man style, or is my breathing in the chest? Because if you're not filling up your gut when you breathe in, then letting the gut relax and bringing in all that air, then you're missing out on conscious awareness, basically, because You know, a lot of us in today's world, we're fast paced, we're moving, we're not breathing through the gut, we're breathing through the chest. We're missing out on a huge amount of energy that comes through that breath. And I think that there is also, you know, a misnomer or lack of education where people just think, oh yeah, you know, I'm breathing in oxygen, I breathe out CO2, and that's all there is to it. Like, no, that is very surface level, elementary school understanding of breathing. There's much more around energetics and, you know, the energy that's in the air, the ether that is coming into the lungs, and the lungs is filtering that energy and bringing it into the body. And that's why, you know, with certain breathing techniques like the Wim Hof method, which I spoke about last time, you know, you can basically change your the way that you feel simply by, you know, doing breathing techniques that takes 3 minutes. In 3 minutes, you can change your whole perspective and in life in that moment simply by breathing. It's because there's a lot more going on other than just breathing in oxygen, which keeps us alive, and breathing out CO2. Also, the lungs are taking in water from there. They're hydrating. Your lungs are actually breathing in water with every breath, and you can actually hydrate the body through breathing. So I don't want to get down the road too far on breathing, but my point here on number one here is just, we've got to be consciously aware of our breathing at all times. So, you know, kind of going through your day, like check into yourself, and because I have to do it too, right? I'm consciously checking in with myself all the time. How is my breathing? And sometimes just slowing down and taking a breath is so powerful, you know. And then obviously the Wim Hof method, there's a free app that you can download on your phone, which is awesome. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Wim, but you know, he's very well known for being able to stay in ice cold water for long periods of time. But his breathing techniques are very simple, but they're very powerful too. And so one of the thoughts that I had was to use the portable structured water device, which is pictured here, where I'm holding it in my hand. And I'm using that device to structure the water that I drink or cook with, and many other ways I'm using. But one of the ways is to, you know, combine Wim Hof's breathing methods and breathe through the portable structured water device, because I can structure the air as I breathe through that device. And then I have now I'm hitting the bong over here. So I got my GANS water, which we can talk about, plasma GANS. And I'm breathing in plasma through my bong, because this water here is plasmatic water, and I'm pulling the ether through it, so it's pulling in plasmatic gases, which is basically gas form of energy. We're going to talk more about that. So what I did was, for today's call, I just wanted to you know, kind of just show you, like, you know, obviously with Wim Hof, he's got a mobile app. I highly recommend it. All his stuff is super simple to do and extremely impactful. So just learning anything about, you know, what he's doing with breathing and cold showers and stuff, it's simple stuff you can do in your life and highly impactful. You know, there's a lot of people with different breathing techniques and do all this stuff. And I've done a lot of that. His stuff's super simple, but yet extremely powerful. So it's a free app. So I highly recommend that. I just showed you my bong. I got it on Amazon for $27, and it's got a beautiful marijuana. If you're into that, I used to be heavily into that. No longer into that, but yeah, you can buy them. You know, the glass bongs.
5 stars. Yeah.
And I mentioned the structured water devices. This is Clayton's product that he developed, and I'd love to kind of, you know, I'd love for Clayton to just take a moment to kind of tell us. I mean, it's your product, so why don't you just kind of give us your, you know, obviously there are new folks on the call here that aren't 100% up to speed. I've talked to Anastasia about your product, and I think she had an opportunity to use it at one of our meetups, if I'm not mistaken.
I did.
Yeah. So she got to see just with one pass through the portable what the difference was. So maybe Clayton, you can take a second here to get us up to speed on what you've put together.
Where would you like me to start?
I know, right? Well, you can let loose with these two because they're well tapped into, energetics and spirituality. So you can go as far as you want down that road. But yeah, because I talk about your product throughout this presentation in different ways, I think it's important at this stage to kind of hear from the man himself, what's going on. I think just kind of assume they don't know anything and what's actually going on with when water passes through your products.
Okay, so we have a variety of products, probably can cover virtually every aspect of water that's out there. And my researchers and I worked on what more is possible. So we went into air, structured air, which is being utilized all over the world for all sorts of air products. And not only that, just the individual, like churches, it keeps people awake. Where you don't have a tendency to doze off. It keeps you alert. For students who are learning, if they are breathing structured air, it is very impactful to your brain because it keeps your brain stimulated and actually keeps your brain in where your brain is regulating. When your brain is regulating, disease is impossible in the human physiology. So I can go into all those things further at any time with anyone. You want to know how it works?
Yeah.
It works as nature works. It's simple. And basically what it is it's based on, again, nature's technology to fix all water, no matter where it is or what the condition is. And if that were not possible in nature, we would not exist. I'll guarantee you that. The other aspect of structuring is it is identical to the liquid within all living things. If the water or the waters or the liquid within were not structured, life did not exist. So what structuring does is it lowers the viscosity or the tension of the water, and in so doing, it makes for instant hydration. How does it do that? Well, the water passes through, you can see the portable. The water passes through, and it passes right straight through. It's hard to imagine that it can change that dramatically in that short of a distance. But it does, and it does the same thing within us. So what structuring is a change in one element. Specifically, that element is hydrogen. So as water is turning, the turn is called a vortex. It's a high-speed turn. That high-speed turn causes the molecular structure of hydrogen to change. What it does is it increases the hydrogen bond angle, the angle at which hydrogen adheres to itself, and everything that exists contains hydrogen. Everything.
Mm-hmm.
Is the number one element. So there's not really that much out there, maybe more so now, but virtually every researcher into water runs into certain things. The problem primarily is that we don't have the equipment scientifically to prove any of this. But anyway, let's go back to hydrogen. So what happens to hydrogen? It changes the hydrogen bond angle. It goes from nominally water around the world has a hydrogen bond angle of 105 degrees. One pass through the portable changes the hydrogen bond angle of that water to 120 degrees. At 120 degrees, the water is considered hexagonal water, 6-point. So if you look at the tap water, or anywhere in the world, you would see that the tap water, the number of water molecules that all cluster together is huge. When you structure water, it drops it down to 6 water molecules in a cluster. One. When you drink this water, breathe structured air, again, hydrogen. Air has hydrogen, water has hydrogen, and every physical thing has hydrogen. So when you change one hydrogen atom to perfect, every hydrogen atom that atom comes in contact with makes those atoms of hydrogen in its image. It's that simple. So
yeah, that kind of plays into that idea that you can just structure some water and put it in a little 1 ounce spray bottle and go into a restaurant, spray the water that they pour for you, and it'll structure the whole.
Right, exactly. And you don't even have to pour it in the water. You can just spray it on the outside of the container, because again, the container has hydrogen in it.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a world of let's say there is no limit to what this can do. No limit. The only limit is what we believe. If you don't believe it, this is still going to work. I mean, it's one of the few things that goes on whether you believe it or not.
Sure.
So,
Excellent. Anybody have any questions for Clayton before we move on?
Yeah, I have just a question. How did you find out that this was a thing going on? Like what was how'd you even?
Good question.
you really want to go down that road? I don't think we have. I'll say this. I grew up on a farm in Minnesota, and I went to, of course, high school. I went to college, and in college I was in engineering, and I couldn't decide what kind of engineer I wanted to be, so the college recommended that I join the Air Force for 4 years and then come back and become an engineer. And then I'd know what kind of engineer I wanted to be. Since I flew my own airplane, they recommended the Air Force. I did go in the Air Force. I took the same tests they gave me in college. And I don't know if I should really go into this with everybody, but I actually ended up in the highest school education-wise. I was interviewed by 2 men in black suits. They offered me a job, and I took it. I spent 40 years, 20 years in the Air Force and 20 years as a consultant in research and development. And one of the first things in all of this that really struck home with me and made me really, really curious was water. And so I pursued it. In that 40 years time, I had access to $1 billion research labs, 400 lab technicians, and they were constantly hammering me for something to do. And I kept giving them something to do. But all that information, everything I learned there, the only thing I could bring out with me is what I remember. And I learned in the military government that it was not necessary for me to remember. I learned how to be present, how to access the unified field for everything that I ever would need. I don't need to know it. I don't need to read it. I don't need to engage with it in any way. All I need to do is ask. The only reason I would need to engage with it is to know how to ask the question. When I ask the question, the answer is instantaneously revealed to me, as it is for you. What you have to learn to do is recognize. And first off, the primary position for you is to be grounded, to be connected, to be present. When you're there, every question you ask is instantaneously answered. And it can be answered in the form that you are familiar with. So it could be television, it could be newspaper, it could be magazine, it could be the tea leaves bottom of the cup. But it's there, and it comes to you over and over and over again. So one of the things I used to teach a lot, and I still do occasionally when people ask, and that is that, when you talk about doors opening, doors closing, the one thing you want to do is you want to start closing those doors. And he's absolutely right. You must close those doors. Because if you don't, it tends to keep you in kind of a limbo of static. All kinds of stuff coming at you. A way to do that, just before you go to sleep tonight, just before you go to sleep, you're laying in bed, you ask the universe, or whatever form you choose, to erase everything that you've ever demanded, everything that you ever asked for, everything that you ever prayed for, that has not been manifest. You do that 3 or 4 nights in a row. One morning you wake up, and you may have that now, because this is a power, or let's say a grace of receivership that we all so richly deserve. We have this imbued in us. All we have to do is exercise it. And once you recognize this and it starts coming to you, be grateful. With gratitude and continually asking questions, it's unlimited. There is no limit to what you can do, what you can accomplish.
Yeah.
So structured water basically is a result of that. I went to school to learn how to be still and be able to ask the question and be able to hear the answer. And I'm gonna tell you this one. I won't tell you where I went to school, because it was not in this country. And at the time, it was in the 60s. And at the time, we were basically in a very high conflict with this country. But I went to a school to learn how to do this. And my teacher gave me a method, gave the class a method, basically, which there were only about 4 of them. But the method was to become present. It was to take your shoe and sock off of one foot, put your foot up on a log or up on something, and hit your big toe with a ball peen hammer. You know what that does? It brings everything that exists back into you. There is no out there. And I'm going to say this to you. All there is you. You know this. So Justin, me, everybody around you is like a mirror, a lesson. And we can go deeper than that. I mean, you all know this anyway, so I don't need to tell you.
No, it's good to hear it. It's good to hear it from different perspectives, and we do need to hear it, because we are in this matrix, and that matrix likes to steal our attention from the things that are true.
So what I did is once I accomplished this, then it was a matter of practicing it, and I was in an environment of, I don't know, extremes. And as I practiced, the things that I needed to accomplish became easier and easier and easier. All I needed to do was ask a question and listen to the answer, and then follow through with it. When depending upon what you're talking about, following through can be expensive. But then again, if you're truly in that connectivity, that communication with the universe, it's simple. Basically, all you have to do is ask. And if you don't have all the tools and all the equipment, they will come. It'll come to you. Fortunately for me, or unfortunately for me, how you want to view it, I was connected to the military government. And I guarantee you this, when I wasn't listening, when I was distracted, I was in an environment of extreme hostility. When I was distracted, I felt the pain of it. So, but I'm still here.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. That was powerful.
I'm coming up on 81. When I was 79, I started claiming 79 more years. Now I'm claiming 80 years. 80 more years. And when you're going to make these claims, you want to make claims that you can accomplish, or you feel you can accomplish. Mm-hmm. I accomplished 80 more years because I have learned the tools to listen. Simply that. To be able to ask a question and hear the answer.
Yeah,
I didn't need the education, but the education came to me because conventionally everybody believes you need education in order to accomplish. All you need to do is know how to ask the question.
Yep. Yeah, the other thing that if you're able to talk a little bit on it, that I think is important, that I think gets overlooked when you just physically look at your products, is because it really made a difference in the way that I perceived the product when you told me about the composite and how you were able to further energize the water beyond just structuring it, which is that, creating that double vortex. And you didn't mention it, but also I think just briefly talking on the memory of water, and because I think what most people don't understand is that the waters that they're selling or we're drinking from the tap or you're getting from your restaurant is all dead water. So maybe you can touch on that a little bit too.
So water, the memory of water remembers everything that it passes by, and everything that passes by it, everything that it passes through. It remembers everything.
It's like a hard drive. Right?
So and so where does that memory go? That's a huge volume of information. So, so think on this, you know, the natural hydrological cycle is water evaporating, going up in the atmosphere and returning as rain. Maybe 60, 70, 80 years ago, that rain was perfect coming down to the earth. Today, that rain has to come down through about a ton of carbon hanging in the atmosphere above your head. So the rain now coming down to the earth is extremely acidic. It's killing life in virtually all bodies of water all over the world. So okay, and so I don't even know where I was going here. Memory. So thank you, dear. My support system is
exactly. Co-pilot. Mm-hmm.
If I didn't have her, I'd be off someplace hanging in a tree or something. I have no idea where. Believe me, she keeps. I talk about being grounded.
Yeah.
You know, but
she's your ground.
I'm not very grounded. So anyway, so memory. So water remembers everything it passes through and everything it passes by. And so here you go. You have city water. The majority of you all of you live in the city?
Yeah, I think we're probably all in city water. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So water in a city. So where does that water come from? I bet you that virtually none of the water, unless you're in a real high quality zone where you have an aquifer that has a significant amount of groundwater left. But I would say the majority of the water in the city is
reclaimed, right?
It's water that has passed through tens of thousands of people. It's gray water.
Mm-hmm.
Reclaimed water, gray water. So guess what? That water, no matter what kind of process they put it through, if they reverse osmosis, removes all the physical, or distill, removes all the physical, or all the chemicals that they put in the water to make it look clear. Chlorine and now ammonia, so it's called chloramine, both poisons, fluoride, you know, I mean,
horrible.
All these things that they're adding to the water to make it clear. The water is holding on to that. There's no filter in there. I mean, you can have filters that they say it removes all this. It removes the physical, but it doesn't remove the memory of the physical. So I remember back maybe, I'm not good with time, so back some time ago, somebody did a mass gas spectrometer reading on water somewhere in the country and found that there were 77,000 medicines or medical signatures in that water. This is probably true because if you consider the water that you're drinking or bathing in has passed through how many thousands of people. They say that the water in most cities, like say Phoenix here, for instance, passes through, I know, there was a number like 23, like it goes through 23 different, the circulations around through the system before it gets out into nature, or let's say, again, where nature basically evaporates it, sends it back up the atmosphere and returns to rain. What structuring does is makes it like rain. It does the same process as rain, only structuring I've been involved with this for a long time, so I learned what more is possible. So by structure, we can add so many things to water that benefit the human physiology. And it's universal. So I can tell you, I can give you a list wherever you want to go with it. But I'm just saying to you, what structuring does is structuring removes or all the toxins that are in the memory of the water. And it enhances all the nutrients that are in the water and makes the nutrients instantaneously available to the cellular level. And the reason is the viscosity, the lowered surface tension, the increased hydrogen bond angle makes it instantly available to your cellular level, whether you're bathing in it, whether you're drinking it, whether you're breathing it, whether you're
cooking with it. Yeah.
Cooking with it. It does all these things, it enhances. It makes everything in its path last longer, including you. And like I said, I'm going for another 80 years, and I know I can do this because I have created a significant number of technologies that will aid me to do this.
Yeah, and that's the one thing I think that people in the 3D reality have a hard time grasping. So maybe you can just touch on it, so then we'll move on. And I do want you to, if you can, to tell us more about the composite, what's in the composite that you use to improve the product. But that whole idea of like, well, if I pass tap water, we know all these things are in tap water, fluoride, chloramine, all this, pharmaceutical residues and stuff, because it is reclaimed water. The idea that like, well, if I drink structured water from the tap, how those things, they're not removed, but how those things could still come into the body, but not energetically affect the body at all, I think is a hard thing for most people to grasp. So maybe you can kind of just touch for a moment on that in terms of how that structured water negates the things that may be in the water.
Okay. Well, basically, one thing I would say remember, because if you went to school somewhere in grade school, you were taught, you went to a health class or home economics or some aspect of a teaching of the human physiology. So remember, everything you eat and everything you drink goes out your elimination system, one direction or the other. Everything you eat and everything you drink. So the water you drink goes straight through you. What is water's mandate? Water's mandate is to carry in the nutrients and take out the garbage. One water molecule has the capacity of carrying about 400,000 bits of information. That information is in the form of ions. In a sense, it's a frequency bit that identifies vitamin A, C, all the vitamins, all the minerals, all the enzymes, and even prayer. It's all part of the memory, again, of supporting life and enhancing life. So when water, just another example here, when water is structured, even unstructured water, what your body has to do is it has to metabolize the water you're drinking, make it usable. Back about 30 years ago, there was a study done where a 35-year-old man or woman, to be hydrated every day, the amount of energy their body puts out if you could convert that energy to electricity, you could light your house up for a month. So consider if you're 45, 55, 65, 75, that amount of energy goes up and up and up. And the majority of people don't have the energy left to even metabolize the water they're drinking and make it usable. It's the water that carries the nutrients of the food you eat and drink to your cellular level. Whenever you do a practice, whenever you do exercise, whenever you do massage, all these things, the first requirement is to drink water. Why? Because the water is the carrier of the lymph, the contaminants in your body out down into your elimination system. The water is the carrier of the nutrients into your cellular level. So structured water takes nutrients in, it picks up the garbage in the cell and takes it out to your elimination system. So it's just a little brief synopsis of the human physiology. It's the way it works.
Yeah, and the other side of it, so basically we're taking dead water and turning into living water.
Right.
We're erasing the memory so that water can actually heal the body versus the body have to figure out how the heck it's going to use this water to actually hydrate itself, which is a stressor on the system. Obviously, hydration is a key part of elimination too. So, that lymph system, which is really the bathroom of the body, which uses the skin and urine to kind of remove toxins from the body. That lymph system can now, because most of us have stagnant lymph systems from eating acidic foods and drinking acidic stuff. And obviously now even what you think is water that you might even be paying a high price for, drinking water in your home, or, all these fancy waters that are out there that say that this or that, they're not structured water. So you're paying for this expensive water that then the body has to figure out how to get, nutrition and hydration from. So, and so go ahead, Clayton.
Yeah, we can go on and on and on about this.
I know. The only thing I wanted you to share with them, if you could, it was some of the things you put in the composite of the product, which actually takes energetics to the next level.
So the outside of this product is ABS. It's the canister is ABS. It's the same plastic as all your appliances in your kitchen. The internal component is HDPE, high density polyethylene. All these plastics are food grade, by the way, so they're non-toxic. They don't leach any toxicity. If you were to take perfect pure water and submerge them in pure water, they don't, in 30 days, there is no toxic residue from them. That's food grade. So what for me, when I first initiated this product out to the public, the first, let's say, backlash I got was, I still taste chlorine, and you will still taste chlorine. Why? Because our water systems worldwide are controlled by chemistry, the physical science. And they're constantly developing chemistry because that's all they know. If you bring up the subject of energy to a chemist, I mean, he has in some cases 20 years of education in chemistry. He is not going to agree with energy, even though back in grade school he learned that it's all about energy. Our physiology is all energy, biophoton energy, 0-point energy, scalar energy. So this is another aspect of structured water that we haven't even touched on. but again, okay, so the physical components. So when I got this coming back at me, so I went in and I started looking at what I could do, what can I add to the flow form or to the unit in order to increase the energy? Because again, it's all about energy. When you raise the energy to a certain point, all these things, taste, smell, all these things go away. It makes the water sweet. Nature does it, so why can't I do it? So I started asking the question, what do I need to add to the water, to the process, to make the water sweeter? And I came up with compounds, components. I conferred with a friend of mine who is I don't know what you call him. I've invited him to come onto Justin's call. His name is Tomas Twintrees. And we went through this. We looked at the components, the potential components and their properties. And one was shungite. Shungite is an element that primarily comes out of Russia. It has a capacity, or let's say an energy profile that eliminates negative energy. If you go to Europe, all through Europe, and you look down in a doorway, down in the corner of the doorway on both sides, you'll see a piece of shungite. Those two pieces of shungite in the doorway cast a energy field that virtually eliminates all negative energy entering into a home or into a dwelling or into an office space. It makes the atmosphere much more family oriented. And and if you ever want to look this up, and I would give you his website, but Tomas Twintrees and his wife, they do gems and minerals. Right now, they're setting up for the Gem and Mineral Show in Tucson, Arizona. It is a magical event.
I bet.
You should go there one time, at least. I don't know, they say there's somewhere around 300 or 400 tons, 1,000 tons, 100,000 tons of gems and minerals.
Bet the energy in that room is going to be epic.
Well, it's more than a room, it's a whole city.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. That whole town's going to be awakened.
It's from,
maybe after the call you can find their website. I can
anyway,
the list.
it's amuse.com. It's
AHHMUSE.
Got that?
Say it again. Corinne.
It's AHHHMUSE.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
So what do? And I'm going to throw this out. I make structured water units for them using gems and minerals.
Mm-hmm.
And they're marketed all over the world. So
these guys also, they work with elementals and the elements of the earth in very interesting ways, and they teach workshops in different parts of the world. They're pretty amazing people. I don't think I've met anybody quite like them.
Tomas is a breatharian.
Okay, yeah.
So anyway,
Yeah.
This is okay, I'm getting off the subject here. My subject was what are the units made of? So shungite is one of the components that I and then I had to decide, I had to figure out how to get it in there. So I went to the compounder, the compounder is a organization that makes the compounds or puts all the ingredients together to make HDPE.
Right.
And I found a guy who really knows his stuff. He's been doing this for years and years and years. And I asked him, is there any room in the compound for me to add something? And he said, yeah, there's 14%. So I'm not going to tell you how much shungite is there. It's not that much.
Yeah, no, that's all good.
Okay. And then the other large component to really boost up the energy of the water was quartz. So what kind of quartz would you add? Between Tomas and I, we looked at all the quartzes and the amount of energy that they produce. And we chose one that's already in a powdered form. I'm going to tell you this. Quartz, powdered form, what would you choose? Ancient quartz.
Mm-hmm.
It's not called that. It's called diatomaceous earth in your world. Food grade, diatomaceous earth. They increase the energy level. The shungite and the diatomaceous earth increase the energy level of the flow form 300%.
That's amazing.
Two simple elements. But then the logistics of getting them inside of a food grade product or food product. Yeah, it's interesting. But it got accomplished, you know, and so that's the product that's coming out. And that would be the product still coming out from Natural Action Technologies. I retired back a few years ago, and they're off on their own journey, and I'm on my journey. But I've also discovered other things in my path that are highly benevolent to life, not only the life of humans, but the life of plants, and I'm exploring that. So, and actually putting it into my product.
Yeah, I'm super excited about that.
The product that you represent for me. You know, I mean, and I've already gotten some feedback from some of the things I'm doing, but there is no limit. The limit for me is to keep it in the best interest of all concerned. Think about that one.
Yeah, no, that
How do you put
pretty unlimited.
product out that's in the best interest of all concerned?
That's a great philosophy to use in anything. That's the way I kind of think too. Is
So
how do we create that for everybody, right?
So here we are. We're together now.
Mm-hmm.
What more is possible, Dustin? You know, I'm really excited about this. I call this, the military call this a think tank.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's my goal.
I've sat in many of them. In my world, it was a mastermind group. So basically what we're doing here is we're taking ideas and putting them into a group consensus, throwing it back and throwing it out and throwing it back together. And believe me, that is the answer to virtually all things out there that are, whether they're troublesome or whether you want to improve it or whatever. It is the way to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the co-creation space. So thank you, Clayton, for diving deep on the water stuff. Is there anybody before we move on, because we're not even to the water section, but we I wanted to tee it up as we move into the water section and help people.
One more thing I want to add.
Please.
It is that, again, everything that this structuring comes in contact with, you can look at these units as plastic, but the instant that water passes through it, it's changed. It is no longer toxic. If there were any toxins in the plastic, but I'm telling you, the testing, there are no toxins. But if there were, and the toxins that would be in the plastic would be created by manufacturing, by the people handling it. Think about this. Where does your food come from? How many people handle it? And the person picking it, is he getting paid a fair wage? His energy is going into every piece of fruit, everything that you're receiving, everything that you're eating.
Yep.
So it's up to our physiology, the human physiology, to overcome that. What structuring does is does it for you. You can rinse your fruit and vegetables in structured water. You can spray them, or you can blow air on. Doesn't matter. In California, there's a potato chip manufacturer. Potato chips, they structure the oil. They have their potato chips never go rancid.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because I think I think it's important that we don't limit it to just water, because like for me, like sometimes I'll make a broth, I'll just pour the broth right through there, right? So any liquid product essentially can be structured.
But you don't have to actually physically structure it. You can structure it with air.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you blow air on it, it does the same thing. Try it. Take a glass of wine, pour a glass of wine, or a glass of something that you really love. Grapefruit juice or grape juice, coffee, tea, it doesn't matter. Try it by adding water to the surface, structured water, and then spray water on the outside of the container, or blow air on the outside of the container. I mean, I know that I'm taking you to a place of impossible, but
it's true.
That's what I do.
Truth, yeah.
So there are restaurants now. There's two that I know of that actually they have structured air. They have a structured unit sitting on a fan underneath their counter where they are serving food. Yep. And every tray and every vessel of food that passes over that structured air is structured.
That's amazing. And I'm sure just it's creating an environment for the customers, which they don't realize, where they actually feel better.
Right. They structure their water.
Not sure why I love that place, but we should go back there again.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Right. Anyway,
awesome.
I could talk on this subject, these subjects.
Yeah, and I know that there's a couple other sections that we're going to get into where you'll want to put in your 2 cents. So we'll keep moving. Anybody have any questions around air, where I talked about being consciously aware of your breathing, making sure you're breathing in through your stomach, letting your stomach fill up, using the Wim Hof method app, which is completely free. And I've contemplated starting to use his breathing method, using the structured water device and breathing through it. And then lastly, we talked briefly about plasmagans, but we're going to get into that more in the next section. Any other questions about air or energetics from the ether?
I have one more statement about air.
Okay.
2 breaths through the portable brings all your vital signs to normal, no matter where they are. And I'm going to give you an example. Corinne here just went in for a blood test. She lives in this environment, which is extremely structured. And her
It wasn't a blood test. They just did, they took an oxygen level.
oxygen level, 100%. Blood oxygen.
There he goes.
I'm feeling vital now.
So again, you know, you can breathe structured air. There are ways that you can breathe it continually. You can use a cannula. And a cannula is a 7-foot tube. You can get them in medical supply places. We have them. You know, you can attach it to a portable.
Oh, that's a great idea.
And you can sit. You can, if you're reading or you're like a student, you can put a cannula on with a breathe structured air. You stay awake. And you have a enormous capacity for retaining information.
That's a great little hack there.
So I'm gonna back away now.
Any questions on air from the rest of the group, or questions for Clayton? You're on mute, so you might have to unmute if you've got a question. So you're talking about one of these, right, Clayton?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, perfect.
And there are little adapters to adapt to a portable. There's adapters to adapt to a shower unit. You know, all these things we have all in. So.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah.
Is that what they call it? Canoe? Okay, well then let's keep moving because I'm going to get distracted with that. Let's talk a little bit about water, which I'm glad that Clayton set the stage. Obviously, he's covered structured water in detail, and he may have some input here. I know another way that you can structure water is using 528 hertz, using a Rife device, which I have a live wires, which is this picture here. And so that's, I don't use that. Actually, one of the uniqueness, I have a skincare line that that is live. You can go and check it out at marcova.com, MARCOVA, where that's what we're doing, is that we're structuring those products. So in that case, we used at the time anyway, before I had acquired a portable unit from Clayton's company. I was using 528 hertz to restructure the water in those products. So that is another way that you can do that. Obviously, it won't have the shungite energetic blast that he mentioned, and that kind of stuff. But you can structure water that way as well. So I mentioned it here. Let me just show you those. Let me see if I can find where I've got it here. So this is the product that I have. This is a very inexpensive, $200 or $300 that you can use your laptop, because the larger machines, can get into $2,000 or $3,000. And Rife is just to briefly, Rife. There was a gentleman, Dr. Rife, in the 1930s, who identified that, whether it's these different ailments that we deal with have a frequency. And if you send that same frequency back at that, whether it be cancer or arthritis or whatever the case may be, all our body has, different things, different frequencies are aligned with, different things going on in our body. And you basically can eliminate so quote unquote disease or ailments by simply sending frequencies of the same level, tuned to the same level, back at it through the body. It will actually eliminate it. And obviously they made sure that he was destroyed in the medical community, because obviously they can't make any money if you learn that you can just send frequencies into the body and heal it. So that's what's going on with the Rife therapy, and that it's named after him, Dr. Rife. And there are machines now out there available that are now relatively inexpensive. The other company, which I probably, now that they have a really more inexpensive solution, I think that the Spooky 2 product is a superior product to the live wires. I haven't experienced that for myself, but I've just seen how they operate and how they do their stuff. They seem, really like they've got their stuff together a little bit more advanced. And it looks like they now have a kit that is, just around $300 $300, a starter kit, which is much more than I got with the live wires. But at the time when I bought the live wires, this was probably 18 months ago. They only really had really expensive setups. So it looks like they've come down in price, and just to where people can buy these. So these are very powerful healing devices, which we'll talk about a little bit in the healing section. But I wanted to address that because it was on the slide here talking about the Rife devices. And I use them occasionally for various things. So, and then one of the other topics, obviously, plasma GANs. We'll talk about that here. And then this is one of the other ideas that I continue to kind of plant seeds with Clayton too on is, one is if we were to structure ocean water, do we really need to desalinate it, or would it be less likely to dehydrate the body? Because obviously, there's at least an idea that there is a lack of natural waters, and that all of our spring water is being sucked out of the ground by these water companies. A lot of this stuff may be propaganda to make us believe the whole world is coming to an end, and we don't really, this whole idea that we don't have enough fresh water, maybe a complete hoax. But I like the idea of being able to understand whether we can take the water from the ocean and potentially easily desalinate that water, remove the salt from the water so that we can use it and consume it as humans without dehydrating ourselves. But I've always posed the question back to Clayton saying, well, if I structure it, does it mean that the body won't absorb, it'll just pass a lot of that salt without it harming the body? That's definitely something I put out there. And I got a download that said that we can use magnetics really easily to desalinate ocean water to make it fresh water. And Clayton claimed that real-time desalination is already going on, which I would believe that's probably true. But I think what's missing is how do we do it easily, with, like we're talking about, these simple devices. I think that's where the world's going, right? I should be able to have a unit in my home that powers my house, a free energy unit. I should have a portable device or something hooked to my home that cleans the water or structures the water. I should have things in my hands that I can buy. I can have a Rife machine that heals my body, right? I should be able to have these kind of things at my disposal, these technologies that I control, right? That gives me the freedom. I don't have to pay some utility company. I don't need to go to the grocery store and buy food. I'm producing my own food. That's kind of how I see it. So, I'm not talking about some big desalination plant that has to be built by the ocean side. I'm talking about the ability to go down to the ocean, if we're close to it, collect ocean water and be able to easily turn it into fresh water. So that's kind of what I had on this slide. And so let's talk about plasma GANs. And I have some here so people that are not familiar with it can at least see. This is a Voss water bottle that I'm using. But what we have here is this is the GANs down here, and GANs stands for gases in atomic nano state solid state. Okay, so basically what's happening here is all these GANs are creating an energetic field, and Clayton mentioned that earlier when he's talking about the structured water. It's creating an energetic field that's then that field is then adding energy into this water up here. So this is the GANs of CH3, which I haven't taken yet this morning. And just by the way, that's all I've had. You know, I did make a warm tea this morning because it was cold here this morning for me. I know I'm in Southern California, but I still get cold when it's like 65. So I just got some water, some 30 milliliters of GANs water here, and that's it. So I'm swishing around my mouth so that energetic water, that plasmatic water, can actually be absorbed, because a lot's going on in the mouth. I think most of us, don't understand how powerful leaving, slowly chewing your food, and because so much of the digestion and absorption is happening actually in the mouth, and it's stimulating enzymes and other things in terms of food consumption. But even with plasmatic gas, is the mouth, the body can absorb a lot of this plasmatic gas through the mouth, as opposed to letting it go through the digestive system and losing some of the potential from it. So I've slowly moved up how much I'm taking. So I'm taking now 90 milliliters of CO2, zinc oxide, and I'd only do the CH3 one time a day, 90 milliliters. And then I'm doing CO2 and zinc oxide plasma GANs 3 times a day. So one of my goals is to test the theory that, which I know is true, but I want to actually bring it out of theory and bring it into practical application, that we really don't need food at all. And obviously Clayton just mentioned his friend's breatharian, and there's proof that that's the case, right? That people can survive with the sun and creating energetics through water and other methods, like plasmatic water, or plasmatic GANs. So and that's kind of what I'm doing, and I'm just observing I'm being an observer and listening to my body and saying, well, if I'm hungry, then I eat. I listen to the body. I'm not like fasting. What I'm doing here is consuming the GANs, and slowly over time increasing them, giving the body an opportunity to adapt to this new energy source, to see whether I truly have, the body tells me if it's really hungry for food or other things that I may not be giving it that it needs. And what I found, like even yesterday, as I've been ramping up the consumption of the GANs, I wasn't planning on eating yesterday, but I did get hungry. I got hungry pretty late, and I ate a late meal, which generally I don't do, but I want to, I'm not trying to use it to fast, even though that's happening, but I didn't eat at all yesterday. It wasn't because I just never got hungry. So that's what I'm doing right now, to kind of prove for myself that the GANs can be an opportunity for us to, because my thought is with food is that if you look at the consumption of food, it's something that really takes a lot of our time and our energy and our thoughts. Like, okay, we got to prepare, we got to make sure we have enough fuel in our body to make it through the day. We've got to prepare foods. We've got to cook foods. We've got to clean up after cooking foods. We've got to sit and wait and eat food. We've got to, and we're spending money on food. Like food is such a big part of our lives. Unlike like shelter, right? Yeah, you have to pay for your mortgage, or you have to pay for your apartment, or wherever you're staying. You generally have to pay money to have a roof over your head in most cases. But with food, it's like all day long we're consuming our mind space, our thoughts, our resources, our time, money. This is going on every day, all day long, right? So imagine the ability to kind of be able to get the same amount of energy, if not more, through these types of energy that really is above, is superior to consuming food. And we've seen that, right? For those of you that are in the juice group, and many of you are, we've seen that with juicing fruits, mostly fruits, right? Because we're just getting so much energy, and the body doesn't have to use all that energy to digest physical food. It's coming through the juice. We're removing all that fiber and all that physicalness of the digestion process, and we're just getting all that great nutrition and structured water that comes in the fruits and vegetables right into our systems. We're getting those biophotons, which is really what's going on here too. Is the photon, it's the light, as we mentioned earlier in the presentation, that awareness is really the photon or the light. So being able to get that into the system and remove all the constraints that we have in our life around food consumption, purchasing food, preparing food, all that process is really distracting. Imagine all the time and money and resources we could have available to us if we weren't so tied up consuming foods all day long. So that's kind of the theory that I've been trying to test. I'm on Kesh's. Kesh is the guy, if you want to look up and look more into plasma GANs or plasma GANs, Kesh is the guy that figured this stuff out. Apparently his father was into was a scientist that really understood nuclear and how to use nuclear energy. And Kesh, the scientist Kesh, he actually figured out this GAN stuff. And he's got a really good video here that's relatively short, but I think it gives you a good visual on what's going on with how this works, so that you can get you can understand a little bit. So I'm going to play this, and maybe I can try and talk through it too, because there's no audio on it. So basically we have a physical matter state, and then with GANs and other things, you've got a nano state. Okay. And it's going to show you how this nano atomic field basically interacts with the physical world, right? And this is that whole idea that you have an energy body that's attached to the physical body, right? It's that idea that you can't really separate the soul from the physical body. It's interacting with itself together. It's one and the same, but it's in different states. And that's really what's happening here, is that you have these magnetic fields. And I know Anastasia, because she checked out the Primer Field videos that I recommended, you're going to see exactly that playing out in this little video here too, where these nano layers, they are creating, they each have their own magnetic field around them. And that's why you see them spaced out evenly like this. But you'll see how this is the physical realm having a energetic nano field around it. And that's why we talk about these fields. Like this bottle, Kesh recommends that, yeah, you can set these bottles, I have different types of GANs in different bottles. Like you can set them right next to each other, but those fields are then interacting with each other. So it's best to keep them, 18 inches apart, so that the fields aren't, when you go to consume the water, it's the water of this particular field, not all the other fields that, you might have from your GANs. And you can move them together and apart and remove those other fields. It's pretty interesting stuff, but this is just what's happening, where we can't use our visual spectrum to see this happening, but it is happening. And, from my consumption of plasma GANs, I can feel it, right? Again, I just really don't have a desire to eat. Till now, it's been like, some days it'll come at like 2:00. Sometimes I'll start getting hungry and I'll eat, or I'll have juice or whatever the case may be. But now, like as of yesterday, I was into like 8:00 at night before I finally felt hungry. And I did. I ate something, right? My goal is not to fast. It's to more just give my body time to move towards, and to Clayton's point with his friend being breatharian, and I think a couple of you guys on the call have, seen the other gentleman that Seven Bomar had on his call that's a breatharian. I think this is a form of breatharianism. You're just bringing in that plasmatic energy largely through consumption of GANs. So any thoughts or questions on plasma GANs? I know it's a big area, and it's really nobody really understands this because it's, most people haven't heard of it. But basically you can make GANs out of anything, food, whatever. And there are a couple of places that you can get GANs from folks, because that's what I did. Like, you can make GANs, and you can buy the copper plates from Kesh for $25. So it's not expensive to make your own GANs. But for me, I wanted to fast forward things, so I just ordered some GANs from somebody that's making GANs out there, and I've got a few other providers that we can buy GANs from. Any thoughts on GANs?
Nope. It looks amazing, and look forward to just doing more research on it.
Yeah, and like there's this one, I'll pull up this one, which I thought was interesting. Let me pause this. So there's it used to be a husband and wife team. The husband recently passed away. They have I'll find the YouTube channel if I haven't already put it on our document. But they have a great YouTube channel that talks about how they're using the GANs to heal. Okay, so that's a big thing, right? Obviously, I've been talking about how do I use the GANs to remove the need to consume food and really rely more on a breatharian type lifestyle, even moving beyond, juicing to survive and to have a high potency of energetics all day long. But there are a lot of people that aren't even close to that yet, right? That are just trying to get back to the 0 point of like, well, I need to heal the body before I can even think about, living off of GANs or going breatharianism. And so that's what's happening with this GANs too, right? So a lot of times people want to try stuff like this because they've got an ailment, right? They've got a disease. They've got these things that, we label as something out of harmony in the body, and they're using the GANs through the consumption of GANs water, but there's also the application of it, right? So people are applying GANs, right? A lot of people are now getting out of their showers and they're using the GANs instead of lotions they're using like zinc oxide as a spray. They'll put it in a spray bottle, and they'll put that all over their body and kind of rub it in, and they don't need these lotions, right? And so this is being applied to the body. People are making patches out of it, right? You can just put some of this GANs water on a paper towel and put it inside of a Ziploc bag, and you've just created a patch that actually heals the body, right? And people are even, there's some guys that are selling the GANs where instead of this being 98% water that I put in here, this is structure water that I put in with my GANs. And again, that's kind of another element of how I'm trying to go quantum with this stuff, is like most of the people talking about GANs are saying, hey, I put distilled water in here or whatever, but that water is still dead, right? So imagine now I'm taking this to the next level. I'm putting structure water in with my GANs, and I just fill these up every day, right? So all I'm doing is I'm drinking or consuming the water at the top, and I refill these every night before I go to bed with structure water, and then I just shake them up, and it brings that field into the new water, and then obviously it just settles the GANs. The GANs will just settle down here at the bottom. So I'm just consuming water from the top each day, and then refilling them in the evening. And then I shake up the GANs to bring that plasma throughout the new water. So there are people that are are getting, this much of GANs and actually applying that GANs to the area that they're affected. You got a knee that hurts or whatever. And some people were basically instantly, have knee problems for 20 years and instantly being healed from this stuff. And it's because it's giving the body what it needs in that particular area where there's pain, to energetically release whatever's creating that pain. And it's so a lot of this, I think what's good to understand, and I think even with food consumption, and this is something that kind of came to me through, some other people's teachings, is like when we consume food, we're not really feeding the body, we're feeding the microorganisms that live in our body, and they're the ones that actually give us the nutrition. It's not the actual food directly to us. We're feeding the little critters inside of us in our gut, and those guys break things down to and then release the actual nutrition for us. And the same with like GANs, because a lot of people are hydrogen water or structured water. What's happening is that it's not really the GANs or the structured water that's healing. It's giving the body what it needs, the hydrogen and all these other things, that actually the body is just healing itself. So people might use this or use some other, use a Rife machine, use all these things that they say, well, no, that thing that healed me. No, the human body healed you. You just gave it what it needed to heal itself. And I think that's really important to understand as we talk about any of this stuff, is that the human body actually is the thing that heals itself. It's just in many cases, because it's so deprived of what it needs to heal, both energetically and maybe even on a physical level with nutrition, which ultimately just rolls back up to the energetics. And that's why someone could consume what looks to be normal water, and actually have more energy than they would even juicing fruits. It's simply because at the end of the day, all this stuff rolls up to energetics. And if we can improve the energetics of everything, then that sets us free. And it really allows us to be, the best version of ourselves in this reality. So coming back to this particular product, I'll find the YouTube channel, make sure you guys have it on the sheet. But they do a great job of really diving in deep on different ailments and how customers of theirs are writing in and tell them how they've used it. And what they do here is they've got, I think it's a cool, unique approach. And that's the beauty here, is that with GANs, there's people doing it with different ways, right? So let's click here, see if I can expand this. So they send you 16 vials of different types of GANs. And these are really tiny vials so that you can, what they say is like, go buy a big glass container that you can put water in. Hopefully it'll be structured. And then attach these vials to the outside. So instead of like I'm doing, where I've got very specific types of GAN, in this case it's CH3, I've got others over here. They're saying, well, add the plasmic fields of all these different types of GANs into one water station, just like your normal, you'd have at your house, to dispense water. And so people are loving this. And I think this is a great approach, right? Well, what if I want to consume more than CH3 and CO2 and zinc oxide? So people, they've created what they're calling the energy station, basically. And all they do is, the people that are using it, all they have to do is just keep refilling their water jug every day. And these plasmatic fields are energizing that water using all types of different components, where they've even turned calcium GANs, silver GANs, iodine with cobalt GANs, right? All these things are then Himalayan salt GANs. All these things are now, energizing that water. So the water you're drinking has a multitude of different types of GANs, which brings different fields into the body, which is just, a quantum way to even tackle GANs in and of itself, which is a great strategy. So Um, any questions about GANs? No? Okay. Powerful stuff. I'll keep you guys up to speed on, you know, my progress with the GANs. So far, I've been using it for a couple of weeks now, and every day, for the most part, every day, I have less and less hunger for food or juice or whatever the case, and you could probably tell that I've got plenty of energy. So let's move on to the food section, and you'll start to see that again. These topics overlap, right? Air and water, and now food, all this stuff. And I keep bringing up the same stuff, you know, in terms of plasma GANs or the structured water. So, you know, obviously what I've discovered, and I think many of you have discovered, is that juice is very, very powerful, well beyond my, you know, if I just look back 3 or 4 years ago, and I've always been into health and nutrition because I was really heavy as a kid. And, you know, it was one of those things by the time I was like 16 or 17, it was something that I was like, wait a second, you know, I'm not going to just keep eating for emotional reasons, which is what I was doing when I was younger. You know, I really want to understand the body, and I want to understand how to be in good shape. And I studied sports medicine. So you know, for many, many decades now, I've been a little scientist in this area. I was big time into bodybuilding before, using hormones and things. So, you know, I can go deep on that. But looking back, because of the consciousness, you know, call it even 3 or 4 or 5, 6 years ago, I didn't fully understand the power of juicing in terms of the structured water in fruits and vegetables, and what I learned from John Rose is really the biophoton. And again, that really gets back to the element of awareness, where the light is, the biophoton is the light energy. And that's coming through. And I think, you know, and I'd love to hear some of your experiences, individual experiences with juicing, but it's a great way to make a transition from solid food, and for many, cooked foods, which are, you know, near lifeless, but have their place in certain situations, to, you know, consuming juice, whether it's all day long or even adding juice into the mix when you have an opportunity. But, you know, for me, juicing has been a game changer, both in consciousness and in health, which has led me to things like plasma GANs and structured water and other avenues of energetics. Obviously, the other thing around food is permaculture, or what's also known as food forests. Okay, so this is the idea of moving from traditional farming, where you just have an open field and you're just, you know, you have your season and you harvest and you clear the field and you try and regenerate the soil so that you can do it over and over again every year. That's really, you know, that's really kindergarten style food production, but that's the world we live in now. And that's the food we're consuming. Most of the foods we consume from our grocery stores, even if they're organic, they are grown with 3 minerals. That's it. That's it. So they, you know, although they may taste better than, you know, GMO or non-organic foods, they're still grown with only 3 minerals. They figured out how to grow food with very little, you know, costs, and even when it's organic, there's very little nutritional value in the foods we're buying these days, even though we're paying a premium for organic. So the idea of permaculture is really, like Clayton talked about, and tapping back into nature, is permaculture is just mimicking what nature does. And it's really creating this environment where you've got tall trees, which then create shade for other types of plants that need shade. And then you have all this playing out. So you can build a permaculture, and let's call it in 1 year to 2 years, the whole thing just kind of, it supports itself. There's no more work to do. And it's just an abundance of fruits and vegetables and herbs that are growing in this so-called permaculture or food forest and can be harvested nonstop. I mean, it just keeps giving and giving and giving, and it gets better actually over years when they're created. So there's some really great resources around permaculture. Let me see if I've got that up here. Let's see. So there's Jeff Lawton, who's probably the world's most well-known permaculture expert, and there's a ton of permaculture designers everywhere. Many of them are not as public or well known, but assuming that wherever you live or want to live, you can find these permaculture specialists all over the place. So don't think that you have to go become a permaculture specialist to potentially put this in a piece of property that you have, or to implement some of these strategies. And I know Anna shared this guy who I is brand new to me, so I added him to the list. But apparently, she's learning a lot from his podcast too. Jack Spurko, she shared that in the group. So, and the other thing, just so you guys know, like I'm actively, I'll be in Costa Rica in February. And I may be able to meet up with Tribe for our little event. But my intention is actually to go there to confirm that that's where I want to live permanently, and to actually, I'll end up staying in a community where I may stay for permanently or for at least a short period of time. But I'll probably be in Costa Rica in February for a week or maybe 2 weeks, mid-February, to see, if that's where I want to be for the rest of my life, so that I can live in a permaculture environment. And there are many of these permacultures that are just starting to be built, or are, some far along, some stage in their creation of the permaculture. So there's a lot of opportunities to go down there and help people with the permacultures. I'll just bring up, while I've got it on this topic, I found a great resource. My sister actually found this resource. It's called workaway.info, and it's basically a database of people that that will host you, meaning they'll give you room and board and likely food by just coming and helping them. And in many cases, like, let me give you an example. Let me get rid of this cookie stuff. So let's go to Central America. Let's go to Costa Rica. We'll leave that, and let's just type in permaculture and see what we find. So it found 42 hosts. So, different people, if you're into the permaculture thing, but there's other things going on. Like my sister, who cares for dogs, she was looking in Costa Rica for, dog rescues that she could, that would host her, meaning put a roof over her head and put food in her mouth if she would come and help them. So this is super cool. Just, finding places, people building permacultures where they will actually, give you room and board if you come help them with their projects. So super cool. So permaculture for me. So I'm taking compassionate action to set the stage where I can live in an environment that is built around permaculture. I'm taking steps every day to get that done. You can start even more simply, right? I have a tower garden, towergarden.com, which uses aeroponics. So, I'm in an apartment, so I don't really have a lot of land or space, or even to do, beds. I have very little room. So the tower garden is a great strategy too. And what's great is they, they'll let you pay for it monthly without financing, meaning they're not charging you interest. And you can start growing your own fruits and vegetables, in a very small amount of real estate. So I've got, even with the cold, it being winter, I've got tomatoes, I've got a lot of kales, I've got some Swiss chard, I've got all kinds of stuff coming off my tower garden. And so the tower garden could be a great strategy too, for that. We talked about plasma GANs as food. I'm testing that now. And I think at the end of the day, and you can see a picture of the tower garden here, right? Look how quickly this sucker will grow. The idea with the tower garden is that it doesn't waste any water. And it's you can grow indoors, right? They have a light kit too. So if you want to grow indoors, it doesn't have to be outdoors. So it's really flexible, and literally within weeks, you've got production. And what I've done now, so this is where we go quantum, right? What I do now is I put structure water in my tower garden. So now, based on Clayton's gnosis, you can get 30% up to 30% increased yields by using structure water in agriculture, right? So that's obviously another area of opportunity for Clayton's products with the structure water to bring that into an agriculture environment to be able to not only protect those plants during winter season when things can freeze, with using structure water, those plants will survive a frost where normally they would die because of the structure water, and then also just getting higher yields, more fruits, more vegetables, because the water that you're giving the plants is structured. So that's another area that we didn't mention earlier, where structure water is with agriculture, or even your own house plants, or even your own, if you've got flowers or roses that you like to keep in the house or the office, using structure water, or even I know people that are using plasma GANs water to basically, see that their plants get the most energetics and potential. So that's another area. Any questions on food?
No questions yet.
Okay. Last time I talked about thoughts, and I don't really have any specific websites for this area, but it's just, let's just take it in for a second here, where basically, as Clayton mentioned earlier too, everything is mind over matter, right? So if you believe that something's possible, then that actually is what sets the stage for it to be possible. It allows everything to come into you to allow you to realize what you perceive as being a possibility in your experience. And I think the key is that, especially right now, right? We got the full moon, the lunar eclipse. Tomorrow we've got the Saturn, Pluto, Mercury, Sun, all being conjunct and coming conjunct, and we're probably going to see some wild stuff happen in our reality from that. Right. So we've got to be staying in that place of observation. We can't emotionally getting attached to the external world and the things that are going on. I really just like to, have fun with it and see it as a show that I'm just fortunate enough to be here to experience the show. And, really staying into that, like, hey, I'm not really worried about what's going to happen, if the money's going to go to zero, or we're going to be in World War III. Like, all that to me is complete nonsense. It has no relevance to my life. I'm taking compassionate action each day and focusing on putting my attention on my intention and leveraging my unique gifts where I can to move my experience to the next level in each now moment. And being here with you guys does that for me, right? Because I'm verbalizing the reality that I want to create, and every day that just gets better and better. So I think the big takeaway here is just that the external world is a reflection of the collective consciousness, and a lot of people right now are on one end of the spectrum where they're ready to shoot everybody with their guns, And then there's the other end of the spectrum where I think most of us land. Hold on a second, guys. A therapist is here for a mile. Hold on.
Clayton, I think it's fascinating, the journey and everything that you have come to acknowledge and be aware of thus far. And, you know, I appreciate your presence and your knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you. It's it's what I'm here to do. I'm here. I know that I'm here still to bring more quality of life to humanity.
Absolutely.
So and these things, and like Justin is saying, this is stimulating. It's stimulating to me too. I worked in an environment, I would say a magical environment. I enjoyed it. I wouldn't have stuck around for 40 years if it weren't a joy and exciting. But I know that now I have a lot yet to accomplish, and I'm very much looking forward to doing that very thing, accomplishing.
Yes, thank you.
So again, this is like I said, if I were in the military government, this would be a think tank. It would be more focused, probably. I would say that that's where it used to be, but you don't find very many people that have a focus anymore, really, that can hang on to that focus. And this is what we need to do. We need to find our way in this to choose what we want and focus on it, and then choose the next thing, or we are going to run into more of what we're seeing around us. So
Yeah, totally.
Totally agree.
So any thoughts on any additional thoughts on thoughts?
well,
Yeah. I think right now it's so important that this slide is more important than ever right now because of what's happening astrologically. Things are going to be wild, in the coming days and months. So it's important that we really don't let ourselves get caught up in the wave of these energetics that are going to be flowing through. And a lot of this is just purging energies that will not be allowed to pass through into the new earth realm. So Mother Earth is waking up, reclaiming her space, and we're a part of that. And unfortunately, there's a lot of energetics that are still here in this realm that do not serve us anymore, or will not serve us as we move into the new earth realm. And that will have to be dealt with. And so whatever that ends up looking like, the key is just keep focusing on what you need to do in your own space and for yourself and your family, and start taking that compassionate action and just, love it all. Love, even the things that bring us frustration and pain, love it. The one thing that I picked up here recently that made so much sense to me was that what this reality does is actually turn you into the things that you hate. So if you hate something, then the reality will make sure that you become that while you're here, so that you can deal with it, right? So love the things you hate. And it's not easy for a lot of folks to do, because they're stuck, even for some of us who have really done a lot of work and really stepped into the 5D energy and moved away from the 3D reality. We still have our, deep subconscious triggers and programming that's still there that likes to pull us back into that. And I think the key there is unconditional love, and really loving the things that you've maybe hated in the past. And that, then you can just resolve it. Then it's done. Then it doesn't have any more power over you. So that's a good takeaway for that one.
Mm. Aho.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Aho.
Love the things you hate. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about healing. I mean, we've talked about it already, right? So that's the beauty of these 9 sections, is that there's so much overlap, which helps it simplify this whole quantum jump that we can make, right? It's not a lot of these things we might have thought about, or we've tried them. I mean, I'm talking here about sauna and exercise. These are not, these are not new concepts, but I think the way we think about how they actually affect the body and affect the energetics within our mind and our heart and all this, is now we're really can step into that gnosis and knowing what it's doing beyond the physical realm. Like with exercise, as I mentioned before, I mean, you're really exercising or creating an exorcism of energies that do not serve you, right? And I think we saw that in the movie The Exorcist. If you remember that one from way back when, it was a great movie. Scared the shit out of me as a kid, but but basically it was getting that negative energy, that so-called demon out of this young girl, and it was showing you the extremes of what can happen when we allow negative energies to move into our space. And this is happening in our world all the time, right? Much more minute from what you saw in the movie, but that stuff builds up, and exercise actually helps the body release those unwanted energies that are stuck, that are in the joints, that are stuck in that emotion too. And that's what exercise can do for us. So if we can go into and performing exercise, even if that's taking a walk in the sun, getting back into nature, that movement and that movement of the body can play such an important role in this entire process, in the healing process. I recently purchased an infrared, this exact unit actually, an infrared sauna for the house. It's under $200. Looks like it's just taking a second to load up here. Where I sit and watch TV with my daughter, and I can get cooked for an hour with infrared sauna. It's so powerful to stimulate the lymph system, which is the bathroom of the body, getting those toxins out in between those interstitial tissues and in between the cells, right? And so that's one thing to understand, is that, and I learned this largely through listening to Dr. Robert Morse, but then many others have influenced my gnosis around this area, John Rose being another one. But the biophoton that we've talked about with juicing, and it comes through these plasma gans and things, this is the light that actually surrounds each cell in our body, and that's how those cells communicate. So if we can increase the light between the cells, then they can communicate with each other on how to operate at an optimal level. And I think we feel that when we do juicing, or in my case with plasma, we're feeling that those energetics. And obviously that's the case with plants as well, as the biophoton is how they operate. And that's why we consume plants and fruits and things, because they have all of that energy stored within them for us. So what's happening with the infrared saunas is that it's stimulating the lymph system to flush out toxins that are stuck in the body that have been sort of put away, right? So even in adipose tissue or fat, most fat is a natural way for the body to pull toxins away from the organs. And that's why it shows up on the outside near the skin or just underneath the skin. It's not, although there is caloric energy stored in the fat tissue, it's largely there because there's still toxins that at one point were built up in the body. And so in its effort to protect the organs, the body will put toxins in the adipose tissue. And then obviously in terms of the liver actually stores, these gallstones or liver stones. It's storing toxins actually in the liver. That's why we do these liver cleanses, right? To get those little green peas out, which are basically toxins. So this is a relatively inexpensive way, and it's a great experience. Like, I just love getting into the sauna and chillaxing, and it just makes me feel amazing. So there's a lot of other stuff energetically probably going on here that I don't even understand yet. And it's something you can do if you don't have a sauna at your gym, or you don't go to the gym, or like for me, the reason I bought one is because in my apartment complex, we've got a great gym. It doesn't have a sauna. So I don't need to pay for a gym membership anymore like I used to for years, where they did have a sauna, but I was lacking, the benefit of the sauna. So I bought one of these. These are great.
So when you go to Costa Rica, you can get that with the sun.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You don't need to step into a box.
You got it. Mm-hmm. You got it. And that's definitely a benefit of being in Central America. Yeah.
So what is the limitation now? I mean, the reason we don't stand in the sun for more than 15 minutes is sunburn. So there must be some toning down of infrared, right?
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure. I think that the big key is that just like with a traditional, and a lot of the gyms have these, right? They have a traditional standard. It's just a heating element essentially in that room. They're not using infrared at all. So the infrared is just creating, it's like a quantum jump in the potentiality of the sauna, other than just raising the temperature in the room. It's allowing the body to open up more by using infrared technology, so that the body can release a lot more toxins. So that's the big benefit with making sure that if you do purchase one of these, that it is an infrared version of it. But yeah, to your point, I'm sure they've,
So infrared is used to decontaminate water, to eliminate the bacteria in water,
mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
ultraviolet.
well, yeah, okay, ultraviolet, yeah, infrared, yeah, I guess so. Okay.
Yeah, you got to keep that Corinne around. She's something else.
Yeah, she's something else.
So the sauna is really cool. I really enjoy it, and it's a great tool. Yeah, pranic healing. So I mentioned this last week, but I talked to a couple of Reiki healers, and they, are through my sister who knew some Reiki healers. She was saying that they learned pranic healing, and they basically stopped using Reiki and in favor of pranic healing. And basically what pranic healing is doing is it has very very similar approaches that Reiki does, but it actually uses the chakra system, so that they're measuring or feeling out which chakras are not spinning the way they should be, and healing through that, as opposed to Reiki, which is more just overall energetics of the body. It seems that this pranic healing approach is very interesting in terms of its ability to be more effective, a more quantum solution than traditional Reiki healing is. So
The structured water does the same thing. It increases the prana, chi, whatever label you want to put on it.
yeah,
A 0 point energy. It brings your chakras into balance
hmm
pretty much instantaneously.
yeah, that's why I've been such an ambassador of your product, because I think there's so many elements that come that, until you can actually use the product and realize its benefits over time, that a lot of these things may just not even be necessary with some basic new behavior changes and using, some technology to move things forward. Some of these healing methods, it will seem like a miracle simply because you just change the water, into living water that actually serves the body.
Yep. That's
And
right.
many here on the call, they're in my juicing group, and they've, juiced, and they've experienced that, expansion just through juicing, right? Because they're getting the same kind of elements coming.
And primarily what you're doing is you're reducing again the tension on the juices. The juice is naturally structured.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
It's naturally structured. It couldn't exist if it weren't. So all living things are structured.
Mm-hmm.
So when you consume, say, like, the lemon wedge or the lime wedge, in a restaurant, structures the water.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is the majority of those lime wedges and lemon wedges are no longer, let's say, what they were originally meant to be.
Mm-hmm.
Lemons they're no longer lemons or limes.
Exactly. But they look like it, right?
Like it though.
Right. So if you didn't grow up in an atmosphere where you had real lemon and real lime, the majority of people today don't even know.
Yeah, they have no idea. Yeah.
Also, Justin, can you refer us back to the Clayton structured water unit?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know you jumped on. You had a question about it, or?
Actually just wanting to know where we can purchase it and actually read some more in-depth details.
Sure.
Because G Squared over here, that's my brother, and I kind of had him jump in on the call.
Yeah, bring him on.
Just so he can get an idea of the structured water unit and all the healing and everything that and the information that we're and healing message that we're relaying to each other. So
yeah, no, everybody's welcome. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I'll come back to it. Let me just
okay.
wrap up here. We'll come back to it for sure. And then obviously we talked about the Rife machine. So again, the Spooky 2 unit. Let's see if I can find it here again. We've got the Live Wires unit, but I think for the money, the Spooky 2 starter kit is the technology that I would use. And the other thing what's interesting about this technology that blows my mind, but also makes tons of sense when you start to understand, scalar energy, is what Einstein called quantum entanglement, is that you can use DNA, and actually you could be sending these frequencies into your DNA at the house while you're at work, and you're actually healing your body. Okay. So the beauty with this is that people, a lot of this stuff is way over people's heads and they don't really get it. But, Einstein, when you're dealing with quantum, then everything is in an instant. So time and space don't really play a role. So this idea that, like, okay, if I shine a light, how long is it going to take that light to get to 100 miles away? That's sort of this 3D reality thinking. Okay, when you get to quantum, it doesn't really matter where you physically are or how much time is between elements when you're dealing with scalar or 0 point energy or all this stuff, that it's the same thing. It's the same energy using different labels. You've got, Tesla energy, 0 point energy, scalar energy, vril, chi, prana. It's all the same energy, basically. It's the same energy field. And yeah, go ahead. What's the other one?
Yeah, photon.
Yeah, the biophoton, right? Same. And so with these frequency-based energies, you could be sending those frequencies into your body through your own DNA by simply, and you have to change the DNA samples about once a week. But it would allow you to, because many healers, what they would do, and they're doing today, is that they're using these units and actually healing their clients while their clients are not even there, right? So the clients come in once a week for a checkup, have a session, let me get some fresh DNA, right? Put it back on the machine. This is a quantum approach to healing, so that they are actually, their body is being healed by putting the frequencies into their DNA, whether that's blood or that's hair follicles or other, forms of DNA that we can get. Fingernails, you can use, apparently there's DNA in fingernails. So, that's another approach here that is a quantum approach that, you don't have to sit here on this machine. And most of the sessions are like 15, 20 minutes tops. So while you're watching TV or whatever, you can do a Rife session, and generally it's used daily. And for all things, like there's frequencies for losing weight, there's frequencies for arthritis, there's frequencies for, you name it. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of frequencies aligned with different ailments that can be used with the Rife technology. It's really impressive stuff.
The one reminder though is it's not Rife. It's a duplicate.
Yeah, it's Mother Nature. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you're going that way, yes, then it is like Rife in a sense. But Rife actually produced a electron tube that could produce all the energies very significantly. So, and in their truth.
That's true. His technology was greater than what I showed you with the Spooky 2 stuff. Yeah.
The problem here is the majority of this technology is digital.
Mm-hmm.
Digital
exactly.
is real.
It's copied.
It's a simulation.
Mm-hmm.
This in it's like food, for instance, is analog. When you listen to music, live music, that's analog.
Mm-hmm.
That's the quality to heal and bring your physiology into perfect harmony.
Yeah, you make a really good point there.
But the majority of what we're facing out there and the tools that are being put out towards us are all digital. It's all digital information, and digital information is not
a copy. Yeah,
is not healthy, really.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I've got a YouTube video of a guy that found from I think the 30s a healing box, and it is an analog energy tube box, and it's really cool. It actually still works. So I'll have to share that with you guys. I think you bring up such an important point there. Absolutely, is that, and that's why it's so important to really get back into nature, because then you're going to get these downloads and this understanding of this is already happening in that energetic field within nature. We've just forgotten, and we've been programmed to believe that's inferior to technology and all this other nonsense that they've sold us, essentially. So yeah, it's really important.
It's basically the same thing, with electricity. Electricity is definitely not good for us.
Exactly.
But the powers that be, they made electricity so cheap, it eliminated the origin and made it So virtually nobody remembers how to.
Yeah. Get free
Yeah.
energy from the air. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Magnetics and dielectricity.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Great point. Great point. Absolutely. And I think the more that we can get back to the non-simulated, you know, and that's the whole key here is like, and the point of this section about healing, it's like, yeah, we don't want to be in pain anymore, but really to maximize our potential, we have to heal the body so that we can then hold on to a higher level of energy in the body, because the body can actually hold a ton of energy that we just still to this day haven't fully realized, which would allow us to step into our unique gifts and our powers a lot more. It's just that the body has been beat up for decades because we didn't know any better, and we've got to try and get it back to square one so that, you know, we don't need these, you know, synthetic tools or, you know, copies of actual nature to fully step into our experience here, you know.
Absolutely. Recalibration.
Mm-hmm. And you know, for myself, like there's still more healing to do, but for the most part, like I feel, you know, I just turned 44. I feel like I'm 24. I mean, I'm off the. It's hard to hold it in. You know, I gotta be grounding myself all the time because I'll fly out of my shoes. So yeah. So
I want to tell you, a researcher that I worked with him for 6-8 years, researching structured water, pressured air, and several other technologies in the same category. But he's a mountain climber, and he reports. You know, we talk regularly, but you know, when we talk about structured air, he said he's just under 60, and he climbs mountains. So what he does is he takes a portable or a shower unit on a cannula, and he said when he climbs a mountain with that structured air, he feels like he's 20 years old. So.
well, you know, you say that. It was interesting. I had a moment the other day, and I've kind of now more observant of it because I do go running in the mornings and stuff. But it was really interesting. You know, I live on the second floor in an apartment complex, and I ran up the stairs because I needed to grab a set of keys or something from the apartment when my daughter and I were headed out somewhere. And I ran up those stairs, and in that moment, I was like, what the, like, I felt like I was light as a feather. I felt like some sort of superhero. Like it was a weird experience that I actually have spoken to a few people about. I'm like, I don't know, in that moment, I felt like light as air, and I felt like some superhero movie, like running up those stairs. Like I did it so quickly, and I had no, you know, general like feeling like I just had to, you know, like I sprinted, and my breathing was still normal when I got to the top, where normally I would feel like I would definitely have an increased, you know, heart rate. So it was like what just happened right now? It was one of those moments like,
Your physiology is making the adjustment.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what this is all about. You know, every piece, you know, it's like the small hinge.
Mm-hmm.
Every piece is contributing to the whole. And the more that we can engage in those pieces and realize them within our physiology, again, you know, there is no limit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm really starting to understand it as I'm going through this process myself, for sure. So in terms of the GANs or MMS, which is also known as chlorine dioxide, and you know, I would highly recommend that you, again, this link is going to be it is on the sheet. This is a new, this came out in December, and it's a great little documentary about Jim Humble's life. And Jim Humble's the one that really brought chlorine dioxide, or what's also known as Mineral Miracle Solution, MMS, to light, where I think he was in Africa and people were having malaria, and he kind of discovered that this, cost nothing almost solution was able to completely eradicate malaria and many other quote unquote diseases or ailments with ease. And, he's been one of these guys that they've tried to bury and get rid of him and call him a kook and tell, if you Google, this is the thing. So I'm glad I'm telling you, if you're not aware of Jim Humble and MMS, if you Google chlorine dioxide, they've filtered those results to where everything says that basically this guy's a nut job that tells you to drink bleach. That's what they've done to this, to this message, because they've tried to just get rid of this guy, almost just like they did Dr. Rife, right? They just trying to ruin these people. It's all character assassination stuff, because they don't want the public to realize they don't need pharmaceuticals. That's how impactful, his work and his message has been. But Jim Humble and, chlorine dioxide, this is just another form. So all of these are very like, whether it's hydrogen water, he maybe even plays in the structured water. I'm sure Clayton will have some input there. MMS or chlorine dioxide. There's probably elements of plasmagans where it's basically an oxygenating process. These are different tools that actually oxygenate the body that enable the body to get back to a homeostasis, basically. So when you look at a lot of these like supplements and things, a lot, in terms of healing, a lot of them are just ways to detoxify or to oxygenate the body. And there's not one that's, some are supreme to the other. I think that anything that gets you closer to hydrogen is supreme. So drinking hydrogen water or breathing in hydrogen gas. And there is a machine that I just came across recently that I'm still studying. This guy's name's George Wiseman. And there's also I think it's Korean or Japanese, the Lourdes machine, which a lot of people are familiar with, where in this case you can make hydrogen water and hydrogen gas at the same time. And this stuff is, super healing stuff. So not cheap by any means, but for folks that have deep healing needs, cancers and other things, life-threatening type ailments, this is a really small investment, these types of devices. So a lot of these are oxygenating, treatments. That's what's happening with chlorine dioxide as well. TRS, which is something that is helping a lot of folks. This is a nano form of zeolite. Okay, so what this is doing is it's going especially into the brain, where it's very difficult to get oxygen deep within the brain where these metals are stuck. And we get these metals from everything in the environment. A lot of vaccines, right? If we've had vaccines, a lot of metals in the brain, the antiperspirants, the water, everything we consume has got metals. We're breathing in this stuff. This stuff gets trapped in your brain, which then creates these like memory loss issues or brain fog. There's an endless amount of symptoms that come from these toxins that get stuck in the brain. And TRS, advanced TRS, is probably one of the only products that I'm aware of at this stage in my gnosis that actually can cross the blood-brain barrier and pull toxins out and keep those toxins from actually harming other parts of the body. So in many cases, people that know that they have these metals going on, they look at products and things that can help with what they call chelation, which is a strategy to pull metals out of the body and tissues. But in many cases, you chelate the toxin, the metal, out of one area of the body, and as it's trying to leave the system, it ends up going in another area of the body. So you can have that problem where with TRS, the toxin is fully consumed by the zeolite and carried out of the body without harming another part of the body. So again, Advanced TRS is a phenomenal product for that. I give it to my daughter. She has autism, so we're trying to get, she's kind of she's 13 now. We've done a lot of therapies and healed her gut and did a lot of things to really help her in her process. But the last stage is really pulling the metals out of her system so that she could be completely healed. And TRS is already playing a role in that for her. So, and I'm using it too, just because I'm sure I've got stuff in me that I don't know. And, you know, anything I can do to help my brain be sharper. Because what's happening when you have the metal, the neurons can't fire the way that they normally would because that metal is there. So if we can remove the metal, then the brain can fire those neurons and communicate with the other parts of the brain a lot easier. So TRS can be a product that supports that. The other thing which is really exciting is the Primer Cube. Okay, David or Dave LaPont. If you Google, and I know Anastasia recently watched the videos that are on YouTube. He has 3 videos called the Primer Fields. Okay, where he walks you through basically how electromagnetics can work, and which really explains how the Earth system actually works. It's an electromagnetic system, and he has a patented technology where he's taken what he learned through discovering the Primer fields, and he's created the Primer Cube. But here's the issue: same thing that happened with Rife that they tried to do with Jim Humble. Basically, in August of 2019, Dave had to release. He didn't have to. He decided to release his patented technology so that other people could produce the Primer Cube. So he doesn't sell the Primer Cube. He can't. They'll put him in jail because they want to put anybody in jail that produces something that actually heals the body. Okay, so he doesn't produce it, but he's got someone in Czech Republic now who's about to go full-blown manufacturing on this. I think they're really close. Dave just told me last week that he's got a sample unit coming from them to him so he can test it. And obviously Dave has these units for himself that he's built. And, you know, he's, you know, he says he feels like a kid again. Like, and people that have used his technology when he's tested it, some people have been healed in like 10 or 15 minutes of serious ailments. And so this technology is coming, and, you know, he's having other people, which he has no interest in, producing it. That's what he decided to do, was just to release the technology to the public. So that, and he gives you all the plans so you can go 3D print all of it. And this might be something interesting for you, Clayton, if you know, I know you're stepping into the 3D printing world. Like, he gives you everything that you need to go make them with relatively, you know, everything's provided for free. He's not selling his plans or anything. So this is coming, and, you know, this technology is like phenomenal. You know, I think it's right up there with Clayton's work in structured water. And there may be, again, some quantum, you know, bringing those together and using them in a certain way together. I mean, it's endless what's possible. And I think this technology, and even some of the stuff, if you go to Dave LaPont's, and maybe his YouTube channel is called Primer Fields. You can just Google or YouTube search that. You'll find him. And he only has like a handful of videos on his channel. So it's easy to find. And he recently just put out a new video saying he thinks he's figured out, he had a download and he's testing it. He's already got the CAD drawings for a device, a reactor that you could put in your home that would power your home. And he's testing it right now. He thinks he's figured out how to basically create energy with ease with a home-based reactor. So that's his next step. Like, the Primer Cube is one thing that's really flushed out and done, but, you know, his newest video is saying he's got the next thing, which is, you know, free energy devices.
Awesome.
Yeah. So he's one I would highly recommend you check out. And I'll keep I'm actually in contact with the manufacturer in the Czech Republic, so I can try and bring those to market here in the U.S. Once they're available. So I'll keep you posted on that. Any questions on healing?
No.
I think that, yeah, I mean, I think that.
I think I have like 3-5 pages of notes, and I'm just grateful. I'm grateful.
Awesome. I'm grateful for you.
Same here. Justin, I want to say I'd love to have the Primer device or whatever they're calling it on the website.
Yeah.
To make that available. I think that's just incredible.
It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. Yeah. And his work, he's been doing his work for a long time. He finally secured his patents and all that. And he, they've been trying to shut him up for a long time. So he decided in August of last year, I'm just going to give it away. You can download all the package to go start making your own Primer cubes. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about education, then we can wrap up here. As I mentioned last time, for me, it's just, it's really about sharing knowledge between the young and the old, because the old, the old really came in and in large part, they had a lot of, they've got a lot of gnosis, they've got a lot of experience, but in many cases, the youngsters can bring a new thought or new element of consciousness into something that's well known and established, right? So a lot of us now, we're in this hierarchy of like, this is this professor and he knows everything and he's going to teach you and you're going to read these books which a bunch of other people wrote. And that to me is, I want this kind of space, right? Co-creation. It's like, yeah, I'm going to, someone like Clayton who brings so much knowledge and experience to the table. He's also like a little kid sitting over there learning through us. And I think that's really what the future of education is about. It's about sort of moving away from, this idea that you need to go to some school for years and years and years to get basically what I could have gotten in a year's time. I could have gotten the 12 years that they put me through in in elementary, middle, and high school. I mean, the nonsense that they taught us is just ridiculous. So the idea that we need to, I like the idea, and at least, this is just, I'm just putting it out on the table, is, I should be able to kind of do something for a month, learn permaculture, 101 for a month. And if I don't want to go to 102 and 103 of permaculture, next month I'm going to go over in this other group and I'm going to learn how to use, healing technologies, or I'm going to, whatever the topic may be. Like, it should be very trade school-esque and workshop style. And, it's in a platform that's not like, oh, this guy's going to teach you how to do it. No, it's, he might lead it, but, really should be interactive and stimulating, youngsters to bring in their thought about how they can make that thing better, so that the next time that workshop or trade school element gets taught, it's actually incorporating the things that the youngsters brought into the mix that the elders weren't really thinking of. And obviously just getting more hands-on, right? I mean, for me, in my experience, like, I went to college, but I never finished because I was just sitting there like, my life is being ruined right now by sitting here. I went and learned the things I needed to learn to run a business. I went to take accounting and all these other classes only because I needed to understand those topics. I didn't really care about them. I just knew that to run a successful business, I was going to need to know how to deal with it, right? So, I think that's what's important here, is like, we just got to get our hands dirty, be learning from people that know, be using, study materials that don't limit or compartmentalize your mind when thinking about these different topics and ways that we learn, and, really learning and manifesting, by doing. That's the way that really sticks, right? We can read all the books we want, and taking tests and all that to me is just nonsense. Just throw that right in the garbage and just do it. So that's kind of the quick and quick review on education for me. I don't know where my pictures went. I used to have pictures. Oh, they're here. I'm like, where are my pictures at? Let's see, maybe they're in the position wrong. Huh? Must be Canva must be choking right now. Canva is a great tool, by the way, for making images and stuff. It's a free tool. Yeah, I'm like, where are my images? They're here, but they're not here.
What is this tool, Justin?
Canva.com, Canva.com.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a great free tool to make images and slideshows and really good stuff. So I had some really good images here of people coming together and learning in nature for the most part. But that's conceptually where my head is on education and how education should happen. And, literally children that are 5 years old can have deep gnosis on subjects that generally would be taught in college in the traditional sense. I mean, the idea that your brain's not ready to take on this other information over here. Like, actually, they're more ready at that stage. They're more of a sponge. They don't have all this programmed, crap in their brain to limit their thoughts and their abilities to create magic. I mean, we know that from children, right? The children are full of magic. I mean, they don't let the physical realm that they see limit their ability to use the imagination on what's possible. So, bringing deep gnosis. I mean, all these topics that we were talking about today, which may feel like, wow, this is next level stuff. Like, why don't we just teach this to the little ones and imagine what they can do in even a year's time with that gnosis? And I think that's the beauty of the quantum simplicity, is that this stuff it's actually not complicated at all. Although, if you get into the intellect and you start looking at the details and you want to unravel how, hydrogen or oxygen or all these things, energetics, plasma, we're using a lot of fancy terms, but at the end of the day, it's basic energy, right? And if you can know how to manifest that energy, then anybody can understand that, even a child. So to me, that's the beauty of doing a quantum jump in education as it relates to the youngsters, whatever stage they're at. Even going through a training like this, where we've been here a few hours, and I appreciate you guys hanging in, because this stuff can keep going for a while. But imagine bringing a youngster into this gnosis, what's possible for them and what they can bring into the collective for us. Whereas, all of us on this call, we still have a lot of compartmentalized, beliefs and, how we were taught. And this, potentially seems like very complex ideas and thoughts and all that. It really isn't. And I think when we bring those youngsters into this type of conversation, they're going to come up with stuff we hadn't even began to think about, So that's what excites me about the education realm. And then the last thing is shelter, right? So very similar. And again, my images, let me see if I can refresh this. Maybe that's what's happened. I'm logged out. It's really, tapping into Mother Nature as it relates to shelter too, right? So, as I said on the last call, I feel like I look around, whether it's a commercial building or even a lot of these homes, which may on the exterior look, pretty with the stucco and the little trim and all this other stuff that they put on these houses. But at the end of the day, you live in a box. You live in what I see is mostly a prison. Let's see, where's shelter? Okay, cool. Got my images back. So in education, I just had a few images showing, youngsters and elders learning together in the process and doing in Mother Nature. So with shelter, the exciting things there are really how do we align shelter with a permaculture environment? How do we align shelter with with Mother Nature, as opposed to creating these neighborhoods, these communities, which I love community, but, wasting the lawn, oh, your lawn is beautiful. No, it's just grass that I'm just wasting the land. I could be actually growing fruit and you could pick the fruit off my front lawn and enjoy it with me, as opposed to worrying about mowing my grass every week. I mean, that is just a mind virus that, to believe that we want to have a pretty green lawn that we never use, and we just waste the land and waste all this water, and, hiring people to mow the lawn and all this stuff simply to have a pretty lawn. That's ridiculous. It's just absolutely ridiculous. So, getting back to nature and looking at, there's like Dome Gaia, so domegaia.com, where they are actually, teaching people and doing workshops throughout the world. They've got a new one coming up in Tulum, Mexico, where they teach you how to build your own shelter. They teach you how to use Aircrete, which is a technology that's been around for some time now, where you can use dish soap that you would use to wash your dishes with a little bit of concrete, and you make this super light, you can pick it up really lightweight, but it's structurally actually just as strong as concrete. And that's a picture of a Dome Gaia right here, a home. So you can use this, and now they've even got it to where they've got these, they used to kind of build it, kind of all in one. Now they have blocks, right? You can make these forms and make blocks. They figured out how to do it that way, so they can make them faster and easier. So Dome Gaia is definitely one I would look at, just to kind of get an understanding. And in these homes that are in a dome shape, the resonance, the energetic resonance in these homes is life-changing, as opposed to living in a box with four corners where it's not even in alignment with Mother Nature. So, and then, people are using Fibonacci, which is basically the code of life, and anything that's in nature is built in Fibonacci, including the human body. But you look at any, I think there's the shell that you can see. You can Google Fibonacci and know what I'm talking about. But everything in nature, flowers, everything uses Fibonacci. It's a sequence that goes like this, right? It's the spiral, essentially. And so there are people that are starting to actually do Fibonacci-based architecture, both on a single structure as well as a whole community, laying it out with using the Fibonacci sequence. So Fibonacci is definitely something to look into, just to have a better understanding of how Mother Nature uses the Fibonacci sequence in life, and through everything in life. And I talked about resonance, obviously, understanding the ley lines of Earth, and a lot of the most important, cathedrals, these buildings, these, Capitol buildings, Washington, D.C., the Vatican, all these places are built on the ley lines. They're harnessing the energy of the Earth to support whatever that building represents. So building a community, or being at least in a state of gnosis on your property where the ley lines exist, you can take advantage of that and build, your shelters and things in relation to the ley lines to get the maximum energy potential from the Earth that Mother Earth gives us naturally. The pyramids, right? They're built on ley lines. And it's a cool topic to look into. And that's how you'll realize all these major structures that exist that governments control, and the pyramids and other things like that, Stonehenge and all these places, they're built on the ley lines. They're taking advantage of the energetics that the Earth gives us. And then lastly, just a kind of another cool topic is star forts, maybe building our communities within a star fort. And a star fort is really a representation of energetic potential, and what it does is it protects the community within it from outside forces that don't align with that energy, and also keeps a harmonic component within the folks that are in that community. So so that you have, the likelihood of crime is almost zero, and you have a consistent energetic field that's basically playing throughout the community so that everybody's on the same page. And so it's not only a protection mechanism, you see that in the bottom left of this slide here, a star fort. That's another topic that's really interesting. And these star forts are everywhere. You know, if you look at, you know, the Statue of Liberty, if you actually see a shot from the top of the Statue of Liberty, it's surrounded by a star fort. And this is everywhere. You know, once Washington, D.C., all this stuff is surrounded by star forts. So it's very cool stuff that, you know, there's a lot of people building these dome homes. There's different technologies being used, some fiberglass, right? This idea of like, we've got to stop killing nature, cutting down trees. And you know, if we're going to have to clear out trees to create the structure, we should be using that wood in other ways. We don't need to use it to build the actual structure. We don't need to cut down trees just to get wood to build structures. We can use aircrete, we can use fiberglass, we can use hemp. Now is becoming a big player in architecture and building materials. There's a company out of Idaho that's building homes, you know, almost 100% out of hemp. And you don't need the power tools. You don't need all these things that you need when you're building with wood. And obviously they're, you know, more the ability to keep the cold out and the heat in and all that, you know, insulating properties, they come naturally in the hemp. You don't even need that like you would with wood. So let's talk about energy. Some cool new stuff that's come up is the idea of, basically, for me, as I talked about with Dave LaPont, who just came out with a video this week since our last call, saying he's figured out how to potentially create a reactor that you could safely put in your home, produce all the energy you need. You know, I came across this guy that has these graphene super caps, which is really interesting stuff. Let me see if I can pull that open here. I think I've got some work to do on our sheet. It's not completed. But these super caps, let's see here if I can find them. So basically these super caps can be, that are made out of graphene as opposed to lithium ion. So most batteries out there, whether it's your cell phone, a Tesla car, or whatever, they're using lithium ion batteries, which are actually not, you know, they're not really that, they're really pretty, they're not that special. Lithium ion is not that special. And so graphene, and then recently I was reading that, and again, they're not in production yet to where we can buy them, but the, let me find this. That hemp can actually be charged up within seconds, as opposed to with this new graphene technology, which can be charged in 10 or 15 minutes off a car battery or other energy source. They're saying that in their testing that hemp actually has the components to create these, and they've created them. It's you know, been tested fully. It's just not in production, so people can buy it. Where hemp capacitors can charge within seconds. So this idea of, so the biggest challenge that we deal with lithium ion isn't so much that the energy coming from it isn't good. It is, but the charging time, it takes too long to recharge the batteries. So the idea of using that for really setting the stage for free energy is limited, because you still have to charge it up for a long period of time, and then its potential to stay charged isn't that great. So what I did discover is this guy, again, just recently, right? And so that's what's so exciting, is like this stuff just keeps coming and coming. And so every week we're going to have likely new stuff that we've each discovered out there now that we've seen this information, that has so much potential for us to really get back to having full control over everything or every aspect of our life. So this guy has used graphene to create these super caps. And, he kind of compared this to, in his YouTube video, and I'll make sure our sheet has all these links for you. But basically he compared it to the drills and the saws that have the big battery pack. You charge it up and you got it in your garage, and you use the cordless drills and things like that, which has a 72-hour or 72 watt-hour amount of stored energy in it. And generally those types of batteries, lithium-ion batteries, even with the superchargers, are taking 30 minutes to 2 hours to charge, to get fully charged, where using graphene over lithium-ion, that can be charged in 10 minutes. So what he's done is he's created these modules that you can buy now, so that you can, so the idea is, think about this. If you've got 72 watt hours of charge that can then be recharged in 10 minutes off your car or whatever, you essentially could use these, right? So during the day, you could be charging these up with the sun using solar potentially. And just thinking the home element, charging these up that could carry you through the evening, and you can just stack up as many of these modules as you need in terms of output that you need throughout your house, and you're completely off the grid with solar panels and these modules. So that alone right there, just like, okay, that's a simple way without this huge expensive solar. You could just have a solar panel that pumps right into this thing. Solar panels themselves are not that expensive. It's usually all the mechanisms that they have that use the solar panels that really is the cost. And now you could attach these guys, and based on your power needs, you'd make a one-time purchase, and this stuff will continue to get cheaper and more available. You can make a one-time purchase and you're completely off the grid for good. Full control of your own power needs. And again, he's created a box. Let me see if I can find it. He's created a unit where it's basically a briefcase. And this guy, his initial stuff that he created was a free energy. It's not perpetual, but a free energy device that's a wheel, right? He's got this. So yeah, see this briefcase? What this is basically one of those modules. And then he's got an inverter on it, so you can plug in your laptop, your phone, whatever, right? Anything 110 volt. And he's already got the plug, so you can plug it into your cigarette lighter in your car, hook it to the car battery, charge it up in 10 minutes, and then you're back to 72 hours of watt hours of power. I mean, this is mind-blowing stuff, right? That we could, so this guy has gyroscope, inertia-based systems too, where he's trying to figure out how to create that ongoing wheel that just keeps spinning, creating energy using magnetics. So this guy's next level, but I think the big, everyday person thing here is that he's created these super cap modules that allow us to have power at our fingertips without the need for the grid at all. And that to me there's so much potential there and application there. So and go
I
ahead.
won't tell you what I know.
All right, tell me.
No, I won't.
Oh, so you're teasing me then.
I don't want to burst your bubble.
Please do. I want it burst. That's why I'm here. Burst all of our bubbles, please.
It's easier than that.
I'm sure it is.
And the conversation would be too long for this program.
Well, tease us so that we can be prepared for the next version?
I wouldn't, again, I don't know where to start, you know. So.
Well,
Your
go ahead. All right. Well, you know, you can't put that carrot out there though like that. I mean, that carrot has honey on it. You know?
Dang, Clayton, come on! You gotta at least give us a little taste that we can run with. You know, we want to.
Yeah, this is co-creation here. My mind's gonna go to bringing it into the reality. So. But you got to give me a little bit first.
I worked in an environment where free energy or energy sources were absolutely essential.
Mm-hmm.
And a friend of mine actually back in the day gathered together people like myself, 35 or 40 researchers that worked for the government. And they had the plans and direction, you know, how to on 35 different free energy devices.
Yeah. This is not new for sure. Yeah.
And so there was a time when he was looking at putting this together. The first device they were going to build was a device about 6 inches square and 1.5 inches high that you could power a television set, you know, pretty much any tool forever, and you never had to plug it in. And that's the type of energy source that I used to work with. Anyway, he asked me to help him find money, you know, to actually establish this facility, bring everybody together again, the form of a mastermind group or a think tank, and create these products. And he was looking for $100 million. And I took it to a group that that really was seriously looking at it. I don't know where it actually ended up. I know that it didn't actually go through, but other than that, and I don't know if you want to know the names of the people.
just
The technology does work. It's there, but it's a lot easier than you really don't need a battery.
Mm-hmm.
The technology primarily works off of earth energy.
Mm-hmm.
It's here all the time. You know, and I refer this to people who can't wrap their head around it. You know, you can go out in virtually anywhere when you have two different kinds of soil, for instance, like clay or sand. You could drive a rod into each one, and it's basically a battery in between them.
Right, the earth is a battery.
Significant battery voltages just from the earth. But there's just a lot more potential. And when we talk about a physical battery that you have to charge, I mean, this is kind of this is thinking that's still in the box.
Yep, totally.
So I had a friend that built a system using 13 pieces, 13 parts, resistors, capacitors, and he was one of those that were shut down by the government, um, taking away his ability to produce anything.
Yeah, they're good at that.
So anyway, it's there. There's a lot of possibilities, a lot of potential.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with all of this now, is actually getting it out there.
That's it.
We can talk about this, but can anybody actually put it out in the market and survive?
Yeah, and and that's why a lot of this stuff I think is starting to come forward, is that I have a feeling that they can't stop it now. Like there's just too many people bringing different elements of this stuff to fruition that they're going to have a very tough time. I just think the old system is in the process of imploding, both energetically. We know that with these astrological shifts that are coming, that New Earth is going to happen whether they like it or not. They can't control that, although they've done try to do their best with chemtrails and HARP and CERN and all this other stuff to try and manipulate the new frequencies coming in. But that's why I think it's more important than ever that a lot of this stuff comes into a group like this, because I agree. Like, I know that, the ether, we could just be, there used to be free energy buildings everywhere that produce their own energy. There was no cables and, telephone poles and all that nonsense that they've built all over the earth. It looks horrible. None of that existed before. We had free energy. So it's already been here before. That's the beauty, is that we don't have to go really create much of anything. We just have to, bring it back from where it was and bring that gnosis back and start, maybe even using newer manufacturing processes to empower individuals and communities to have this technology. And I think, where possible, like you said, like, hey, yeah, I know that the ether is full of energy, but I can't buy something right now to harness that with ease. Where at least with this guy, we're taking a step, it is a quantum step forward from lithium ion. And hopefully even soon we'll see hemp, or even this device that you talked about. I'd love to, in another conversation, find out how do we get in touch with those guys if they're still alive. How do we reconnect with that? Because for me, I see it as they can't really control it anymore. You got a guy like Dave LaPont who, knows the deal and knows that he can't produce it. Even Jim Humble, he got around it. Even though they did a character assassination on him, he set up a tax-free church, and through the church, they would sell the product, and they couldn't do anything about it. Legally, they couldn't do anything about it other than do a character assassination on Jim himself, which he didn't really care. So, I just feel like we're at a stage now to where we can bring a lot of these technologies forward, and they're really not going to be able to stop us. The other thing that maybe I've mentioned to Clayton before is, like, I had a download that said pretty soon somebody, again, all this stuff already exists, but someone will come forward and have a simple adapter that we can put on our car that will allow us to use water instead of gasoline. And it will be inexpensive, within the hundreds of dollars. So this stuff is going to come, and I don't think they really can stop it, because they're going to have to arrest everybody, basically.
Well, this is the age of Aquarius.
Exactly.
This is the time to usher in new technologies, and the things I've been reading over the last, several years, talking about this time of as the old ways are, and the people that have been in power of holding on and implementing the old ways, they're falling away. And there is a momentum that has been created that, I agree with you, is unstoppable.
Mm-hmm. And I think that, if we can find people that understand that have the gnosis, like someone like Clayton that's had so much experience and exposure to things like this, that, hey, now's the time. Let's bring it forward. Let's do this, right? And let's get into a co-creation space that we can, bring this to everyone as quickly as possible. That's what I'm hoping to manifest.
Bring it on.
Yeah, let's do it. And then, the last thing, so we can wrap up and enjoy our weekend beyond this conversation and start to develop some of the seeds that have been planted here. And I'll go back to to Clayton's products so that we can make sure you guys have gnosis on that too. It's just basic sovereignty, right? So, many of us on the call have done a lot in the spiritual realm in terms of sovereignty, but there's other things you can do in the physical realm too. Many of these physical realm sovereignty steps, I think that the importance of doing them at this stage has diminished. Although I'm still taking steps to do them, I don't really put a lot of attention on them because they're kind of old world 3D world traps that they put us in with these contracts. Basically when you were born and they gave you a birth certificate and they give you a social security number, that was the trap. It was made in fraud. They duped your parents into signing these documents and basically created a trust account. They turned you into a dead entity instead of a living being, so that they can monetize you. That's what they did. So there are steps you can take to discharge your debts. I'm doing that with one of my car loans right now. I'm on the third letter that I have to send to the financing company to kind of get that done. So I'll keep you posted on that. You can set up a bulletproof trust, which is basically a tax-free church, essentially, where you can operate in a church trust environment. So there is no taxable, thing to tax. You're protected by that trust. There's an entire process called the UCC process to update your status. So you basically tell the world you're not a dead entity, you're a living being, and you have full control over the trust that if you're in the United States, they created for you when you were born. There's a live life claim that you can do, which I'm finishing mine right now, where basically which is a statement of fact. Okay. So you have a couple witnesses, they're putting their thumbprint on there. And it's using a very specific type of syntax language, which all these courts and all this stuff, they know what that language means. And it means you're not a dead person, which is what they have tried to call you. And that's how they interact with you in the commercial or the public realm, that you are a private living soul or man or woman. And you can create a one-sheet document that tells them, which means, because everything that they operate in is the world of fiction. Everything in the commercial space, in the public realm, is a fiction. Okay, it's not real. They've just made it up, and they've used psychology to get us to believe or consent into their fictitious world. So a live life claim is a statement of fact, and fact always trumps a fiction. So when you show up to a courtroom or whatever you're dealing with a live life claim, then they're screwed because they can't deal with living beings. They can only deal with dead entities. That's why they created it. So you're making a statement of fact in a courtroom of fiction, and they're in big trouble in terms of they really can't do anything. So these are things that you could be doing and trying to free yourself further from debts or taxation or courtroom issues you might be going through. These are things that are going on that actually do work, and it's a big, deep topic because the fictitious world that the Vatican and all this maritime law that they've put on top of us that we believe we have to abide by is a complete falsity. And there's a lot there, but these are steps that can be taken in the physical to create deeper sovereignty. So touch base with me if you want more information on that. Let me go back to the structured water products. So if there's any questions, we can. So we were talking about water, and then I'm just going to click over to. So there's really three sites. There's structuredwaterproducts.com. There is naturalaction.com.
Don't go there.
And then Clayton Nolt. That's the three that I'm aware of, and there may be others that have endless resources on getting to deeper understand structured water and its potential. But I will, and Clayton did a great job of creating some really high value, high production videos in the past that make it easy to understand, the power. But yeah, so these are his products. So he has units that are for commercial application, right? Restaurants, anything, right? Hotels, whatever the case may be. I'm sure a lot of restaurants are using the product in that capacity. You can also get an inline one for your home, right? So the whole home has structured water. For those, like for me, I'm in an apartment I rent. So I got a portable unit, which is like this hemp unit here, but I've got the cobalt blue one. I've got a portable, and I have a shower version too. And the showers feel amazing, absolutely amazing. Here's the two shower versions. I used to, I just wait till the hot water runs out now. I don't even get out of the shower. I'm just like, it feels like I'm under a waterfall or something. It's unbelievable. So that's what I've got, the portable, because the other thing with the portable that I love is obviously portable, but you can keep passing the water through. And because there's really no limit on the potential, like my drinking water, I usually pass it through 3 times or more, just to create more energetics. And even for when I'm juicing, I'll pour the juice through this a few times, and you can actually feel the energetic potential of the juice go way up. You feel it right in your brain. Like the brain will start tingling as you're consuming the juice. That's how impactful it is. And that's one of the reasons I really love the portable, is because I can actually pass fluids back through it multiple times very quickly, right? It only takes me a second to do it. And I've just created a higher energetic potential in the water that I'm consuming, or the juice, or whatever the liquid is. And as he mentioned, even wine and, anything else that you consume in a liquid form can be passed through this. So, and then he's got like the units that can be used with RVs. Okay, here's some of the other portables, right? He's got the garden unit, or the RV unit, the large version. He's got a standard unit, which the water softener company that I have an interest in is testing this one, and he's having great results with the standard garden unit for his RV. So that's the beauty, is like there's no moving parts. So this thing will last forever. So it's a one-time investment in something that will last forever. So, but that's generally what's happening here, is that water's passing through this unit. And if you get a portable unit, you can see the balls inside of the unit. So you can see how it's creating that same environment, almost like it would with going through a stream of rocks. That's kind of what's happening. Okay, you got your breathing tube there. Cool. So yeah, so any questions on his products, or anything else before we wrap things up?
Well, I'll make a comment, Justin, that anyone who orders the product, the first time purchases, there's a 10% discount coupon. And let me find out what that is. I think it's, what's the coupon, Leslie? Oh, okay. You need to sign up for the mailing list to get it.
Got it. Yeah.
But then, yeah, and that's on structuredwaterproducts.com. And then you'll receive a 10% discount coupon.
Okay.
For the first purchase.
Awesome. But yeah, between naturalaction.com, structurewaterproducts.com. And again, I'll put this on the document for us, ClaytonKnolt.com. You'll have everything you'll ever want to know about Structure Water.
And I can give you my phone number and email if you want. If you have any questions.
Yeah, no, I'll definitely. I'll put that. Go ahead.
I only answer technical questions and or way far out there questions. But when you're going to talk about money, you have to talk to Corinne.
It's a good way to keep it. Yeah. But yeah, no, I'll make sure that your information gets shared on the document for everyone.
Okay.
Any other questions before we wrap today's session? Any other input or takeaways? I mean, I think what I would say is that I would encourage anyone that has other resources, because there's been a few shared on my juicing group that I'm going to add to the sheet of energetic devices and people using copper coils and things like that to create energetics. To try and continue to, it's just, if you've come across a cool resource that we didn't talk about that we could talk about on calls in the coming weeks, either email them to me, shoot it to me in WhatsApp on the group, or just go ahead and drop it into the New Earth Rising document that I've put together. And if you need access to that, let me know. So that I'm trying to, keep this as a working document so it can keep building and we can keep refining it to have access and places we can learn about these different subjects and start to implement them in our life. Well, no questions then. I wish each of you have a great weekend. I appreciate you guys hanging in there and being here with us. And we'll do it again next week. And certainly in between now and then, if you've got cool stuff or new breakthroughs that you've identified, or you've ordered your Structure Water product, or whatever the case may be, I'd love to know about it. And Clayton and I are always talking about new stuff anyway, so I'm sure there'll be more to come.
I just want to say thank you, Justin, for organizing this and being such a great organizer of all these topics. This was truly amazing.
I appreciate it.
It couldn't have come at a better time.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. All right, gang. Well, you guys have a good weekend, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Great.
You're still alive, awake, alert, enthusiastic.